Somewhere beyond the recesses of time and space, two podcasters are set adrift in a machine, picking up transmissions of movies that are forgotten but not gone.
Welcome to Movie Memory Machine, the only podcast about forgotten movies that hasn't ever resorted to ritualistic sacrifice to appease our machine overlord. Yet.
Never say never.
I am your host, Landen Solano, joined always by my co-host, Truman. It's good to see you.
Landen, it's good to be seen. And I've got to say, in this new dimension that we're in, everything I'm seeing looks just a little bit different. You know, like the lighting is a little bit worse. Have you noticed that?
Everything looks just a little bit more close up rather than in wide shots.
Yeah, and there's like a couple of big actors everywhere I look in this dimension, but then all the
but not
rest
for long,
are,
not for long.
Not for long. Brief appearances and then just a bunch of people off TV shows, yeah.
Well, just as a reminder, we are here in support month, and I want to just tell you the 5 ways that you can continue to support Movie Memory Machine and the Gruntwork Podcast Network. There are 5 ways. They're super simple. Choose your own adventure. Number 1, join us on Patreon at patreon.com/gruntworkpod, where it's a pay-as-you-will system, but for as little as $1 a month, you can support one show or all of the shows on the network, get access to bonus content for all of them. But your contributions, more importantly, help us keep these shows ad-free, very important, and artist-owned.
Yeah, think of it as like when you get a streaming service and you get the ad-free version. That's basically what you're doing. You're helping to ensure that we're always the ad-free version of whatever streaming service you're using.
And we're not charging you $7.99 for it. We're charging you $1.
Or a much better deal than anything offered in this dimension.
The second way that you can help us is to rate us or review us, specifically on Apple Podcasts, but anywhere that you listen to podcasts. If you don't listen on Apple Podcasts, that's fine, but if you can still go there, rate us, and leave a review, a positive review, we can use those to market the show in the future. Plus, it helps the algorithm get the show in front of people who haven't heard the show yet.
You know how when you're on a streaming service and you watch something afterwards, it asks you whether you liked it or not? We're basically asking you to do the same thing with our podcast, and it helps move our podcast up to the new releases tab of the podcatchers.
The third way that you can help support the show is to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. We're not super active everywhere at the moment as of recording this, but who knows what the future holds. But the 2 places that we are active are YouTube and Letterboxd. So be sure to subscribe there, follow us. We have cool lists. We put out unique shorts on YouTube for you to watch. Just extra ways that you can engage with the show. We want to see you on those channels as well.
Yeah. I can't really think of a direct one-to-one tie-in between streaming services and social media, but if we had funny GIFs of ourselves, maybe you could share them there and kind of get the word out in organic fashion.
Letterboxd needs to add a shareable GIF function on their platform.
Every GIF a painting.
The 4th way, and maybe the most valuable way you can help support the show, is tell somebody. A 1-to-1 recommendation, word of mouth, is the best way to get someone to actually listen to an episode. Share it via text, via email, tell someone over lunch, over dinner, tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell a lover, tell a hater.
Oh, whoa. God bless you if you have such a rich social life that you have so many different kinds of people who you want to recommend a podcast to. But please do it. The same way that everybody used word of mouth to spread the word about the streaming series Schitt's Creek, do that with our podcast, and maybe we can win a whole bunch of Emmys.
The 5th and final way that you can support us is to join us on our Discord, which used to be a Patreon-only bonus, but now is open to everybody. And you can get access to that over at our website, which is moviememorymachine.com. We are trying to cultivate a positive community of film lovers, people who listen to the shows on the Gruntwork Podcast Network, and I forgot to mention this before,
and
you can actually vote your own verdicts on whether or not you send these movies back to modern memory or leave them forgotten.
And many popular streaming shows have fan communities on Reddit or Twitter that can get a little bit crazy with the different fan theories that they're thinking of about what's going on in the show. So what we're saying is get in on that, start cooking up insane fan theories about what our show is doing. And, that'll be fun, right? That'll be fun for us to read. Maybe it won't be fun for you to write, but whatever.
I think Truman is asking for his karmic payback for all the fan fiction he wrote when he was in high school.
Listen, I have this black mark upon my soul for writing fan fiction. The only way it can be healed is if the same damage is done to me. So come on, heal it.
That's the way you can support us. We hope that you will in one way or another. Anyway, let's get on with the show.
Yeah, stream on.
Oh, goodness gracious. We are in the streaming dimension this week for this week's film. The machine has made us watch Damsel from 2024, a Netflix original. But to open this conversation from the streaming dimension,
yes,
I have a very important question to ask you.
I'm sitting here and I'm going to wait for Landen to ask me the question, because in the streaming dimension you have to say out loud everything that you're doing so that people at home understand what's going on, because they might not be paying close attention.
Yeah, and so you can have the closed captions on and read what everyone's thought is at any given time.
Yeah, I love that.
Here's my question to you, Truman. Are you familiar with something called the Paramount Decree?
I am not familiar with the Paramount Decree. Is it a spy novel from the 70s written by Robert Ludlum?
No, it's not. Back in the day, and I'm talking like in the 30s, 1930s.
Ooh. Yeah, back when the boys in the boat were out there rowing.
The studio system had a organization of vertical integration. Mm-hmm. They produced movies, they distributed movies, and they owned movie theaters in which to exhibit them.
So these studio-owned movie theaters, they played movies from all the different studios, right? Like, they showed a diverse slate of films produced by different people.
Interesting. Maybe, maybe not. It really depended on the theater chain. But if it's owned by the studio, they're more than likely not going to be showing their competitors stuff. Were each of these theaters, properly labeled so that the audiences knew they were going into a Paramount theater versus a Universal theater? I don't know. I didn't live in the 30s. My research only goes so far.
Yeah. What would you know as someone in the 2020s about living in an era of media consolidation where you don't really know which company is controlling the information that's coming to you?
So the Paramount Decree was, the government looked at this and said, yo, this is, wait, hold on, let me flip through my dictionary here. Yeah. M-O-N-O-P. Okay, yeah, right. This is the definition of monopoly.
What? The government in the 30s had a really streetwise attitude. They were like a Saturday morning kids cartoon character.
So the government stepped in and said, you gotta lose your theaters. You can't exhibit your own stuff to the exclusivity of others. One of the big problems with this was what was called block booking. And for the theaters, their own theaters, but the ones that weren't owned by them, they would do what was called block booking, which was, if you want our big block, if you want to show Gone with the Wind, if you want money, if you want to draw an audience and succeed and continue to exist,
you want butts in those seats, yeah.
Yeah. If you want Gone with the Wind, you also have to take this other slate of B and C Poverty Row films that we have put together, and you have to show them. If you don't show them, we're not going to make deals with you in the future.
I feel like that system, whatever kind of bad aspects there were to it, it did mean that a lot of shitty B and C movies got produced that later provided fodder for Mystery Science Theater 3000. So who can truly say if this system was good or bad?
Well, I don't know. I've never seen an MST3K film that goes back quite that far. What is the oldest MST3K movie they've done?
They did a lot of old serials, like Commander Cody serials and things like that, which were on in the 40s. And I think there were some Ed Wood movies from the very early 50s.
See, Ed Wood, though, is an independent filmmaker outside the studio system that would have been butted out by the vertical integration of the studios, because it didn't allow for independent voices and filmmakers to have an even say in the distribution and exhibition of their films.
You see, and this is the thing. This is what I'm always harping on about. The industry is always trying to muscle out creative visionaries like Ed Wood. They were trying to stifle him and prevent his art from reaching a wide audience. So, block booking.
The block booking, all that stuff. I mean, it's one of the many reasons that the government stepped in and said, yeah, we're going to break this shit up. So get to producing, get to distributing, but you aren't also exhibiting. And so it was called the Paramount Decree, and they broke it up because it was like super highly illegal.
So they just sold the theaters to different people who were hopefully not connected to the studio system.
Yeah, you know what? There's a documentary in that I would love to see. I don't have the information. I would imagine, yeah, there's all these like essentially abandoned theaters at that point that probably were picked up by that person who's always had a dream to just show films day in and day out. Like hell, I would go pick up a theater and change my life just to show films all day.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, boy, it sure would have been awesome to be alive back then, in the late 1930s. Things were going great. Great time to be a kind of military-aged man. Nothing bad happening. We just buy a theater instead of making a podcast. So what the hell, Landen, does that have to do with this movie we're talking about today in the streaming dimension?
Does it have to do with the movie specifically? I don't know. We're in the streaming dimension for the first time, and I just felt like it was necessary pretext to every discussion I will have for every streaming dimension movie we ever have.
And I think it's worth mentioning that we try to steer the machine out of the streaming dimension most of the time because it's sort of a curiosity and an interesting thing if a movie that was released to theaters is forgotten. I think we can all agree that streaming services produce lots of movies that everybody forgets existed. So, that's kind of an easier assignment, and we like to up our handicap a little bit.
I don't like to preview my bits. I dare say they intentionally do that. Maybe I've got some stuff to go into later.
Oh no, Landen, are you also previewing one of my bits? Have we both just got the same bits? Are we in the synchronized bits dimension?
The Paramount Decree, yes. Let's all keep that in mind as we go through this conversation, because we are talking about a film that came out last year. Boy, I have some interesting specs for you that is going to bring up the second part of this conversation in just a minute.
Oh boy.
But it's called Damsel, and it was released via Netflix in 2024. Truman, wouldst thou honor thine audience with a fair synopsis?
Forsooth, my liege. I don't know why I chose that accent, but you know what? Commit to the bit. In a mystical fantasy kingdom, Lord Bayford, played by Ray Winstone, rules over a cold, impoverished realm in the far north. His daughter, Elodie, played by Millie Bobby Brown, dreams of traveling the world. But when the wealthy Queen Isabel of Aria, played by Robin Wright, proposes that Elodie marry her son, she reluctantly accepts, knowing that the alliance will bring much-needed trade and money to help their people. Elodie and her father travel to the lush capital of Aria with her sister Floria, played by Brooke Carter, and her stepmother, played by Angela Bassett, for the wedding. But shortly after Elodie is married to the handsome Prince Henry, played by Nick Robinson, he and the Queen throw her down a deep, dark pit to be sacrificed to a murderous, cave-dwelling dragon, voiced by Shohreh Aghdashloo. Alone in the dark, Elodie must rely on her wits and clues left by other sacrificial princesses to escape the dragon's lair and get revenge on the evil queen who tried to kill her.
You lose points for not doing it in the voice the entire synopsis.
You know, I said commit to the bit, but I'm not going to commit that hard. My bar for commitment is pretty low.
Well, yes, that is Damsel 2024.
We did it.
We did
Told
it.
you what Damsel's about. You didn't know it was a movie, and now you do.
So, Damsel is directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, written by Dan Mezau, writer of two other films, Wrath of the Titans, and Fast X.
Or is it Fast 10?
Well, I think that that tells someone whether or not you're actually a fan of the franchise. If you say Fast X, it means one thing. If you say Fast 10, it means another. And I'm not going to tell you which one it is.
Okay, you know what? I think that this discussion is fast 10-8ing, but we should probably move on and talk about more specs of this film.
Okay, all right. So usually this is where I run down all the box office specs for a film. Here we go. Are you ready,
Yep.
Truman?
Oh,
Ooh, boy,
I'm ready.
Don't you
I'm
love
ready.
when I do research?
Yes, I do. And I love, and you know what I love even more is that Netflix is so transparent with all their viewership data, so it's very easy to know. What's that? You can't be after me for doing weird fantasy voices when you're full on goblin mode over here.
I was encouraging your voices.
Okay, well, come on, Fact Goblin, tell me what you have.
Okay, Damsel was released. Nay, I guess since it's a streaming dimension, it was dropped.
Splat.
March 8th, 2024, by Netflix. It was produced and distributed by Netflix and exhibited by Netflix because it's a Netflix film that showed up exclusively on Netflix. Number of theaters this was initially released into.
Do I want to guess?
Netflix.
Netflix. But I mean, did it even premiere at like the Chinese theater so Millie Bobby Brown could walk down a red carpet?
No, it did not.
Wow. I'm sorry, Millie Bobby Brown, but honestly, you've got a lot of other good stuff going on, so I'm sure she's okay.
Box office debut ranking.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Netflix.
Okay, good.
There's no box office. So
Yeah.
that means there's no top 10 box office.
So
Because,
it made no
well,
money.
I mean, there was, just this wasn't part of it.
So this is the lowest ranked movie in the box office we've ever done. This is lower than Simone.
Get ready to have a conversation in just a minute, buddy.
I come into this ready to have a conversation. The entire premise of the show is conversation. Can you imagine if the episode started and I was just like, "Hey man, just don't talk to me today. I just can't," and it's just silence.
I mean, sometimes. The film's budget. How about that? I have some info on that.
Okay, yeah, give it to me.
Do you want to guess that since we don't have box office numbers?
I also did a little digging, so I'm gonna say a number, but maybe you see if the number lines up with your number, since I often find different numbers. I saw $70 million for this here film.
I have between $60 and $70 million. Yes.
Yep. That's many Bothans died to bring us this information. Netflix guards that stuff carefully. I don't know who leaked what. I don't know if they had a Clive Cussler on the inside leaking details to the press.
There is no gross box office for this film. However, this is where I did some research on what Netflix does release.
Okay.
They claim that from the time it was released on March 8th, 2024, through June, so I guess that's one of their quarters maybe, if you're looking at it in business terms.
Yeah.
They claim that this had 143 million views.
So that's
by June, in a 3-month period.
In a 3-month period, 143 million people pushed play on this.
That's what they want you to think.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what they're telling us, but why would
That's not what they're telling us. That's not what they're telling us.
Tech company lie?
I have a job in which I work with analytics, and I know the game of spinning numbers.
That sounds like a terrible casino game.
Here's the thing.
Play spinning numbers?
143 million views, not viewers. So that could be one person watching it multiple times.
Yes.
The other thing is, what that number does not take into account are what are called drop-offs. People who press play and then stop watching after 10 minutes.
Because they were trying to get something else and said, oh shit! Because it was the first thing served to them on the page.
Yeah, exactly. So I looked up what Netflix releases in terms of their stats. They're very secretive, and it was only in the last 5 years that they've agreed to release anything. This is what they've started releasing: is hours viewed, the views, i.e. the watch count, the engagement metrics, and that just means completion rates, if someone has rewatched it. So how are people engaging with something?
Yeah.
Top 10 charts, which I think are kind of irrelevant considering the metrics are what they set.
A quick point of order. How do they know how people are engaging with something? Like, how can they tell how people are engaging with it? Do they know that you're looking at your phone?
No, but I have a POV. I'm sure they do focus groups. They have to.
Yeah, of course. Nothing happens in this country that isn't focus grouped to death. So
yeah, exactly. I'm sure they have some. What's that like subdivision that was built to test nuclear blasts and fallout?
Yeah,
that just like exists out there. I picture a Netflix village or an Amazon Prime village where they're like, yeah, come to our community, sit down, come into the house, make yourself a snack, sit down and watch TV. And they just observe your behavior from the second you walk into the door to the second you go to bed.
Just slow motion black and white footage of blast waves of mediocre, forgettable content just washing over these poor people's brain cells. Oppenheimer is in a shack like 5 miles away watching through binoculars. Now I have become Death, creator of Damsel.
Internal metrics are not released. This is stuff that they don't release publicly, which is the drop-off rates. So they don't want people to know that, oh yeah, we had Damsel, which was 143 million views, but 100 million views of that stopped watching in 10 minutes. They don't release how often things are rewatched. So that means, potentially, I'm just saying this is a possibility. I'm not saying Netflix does this. But without knowing the rewatch rate, there's nothing to say that there couldn't be some sort of farming system out there to drive up the metrics.
I think this is another reason that we try to steer the machine out of the streaming dimension as much as possible, because it's just there's no hard facts to go on here.
Yeah.
It's more conjecture and bullshit than even our normal episodes, where we are oftentimes working off of scanty data that we are sometimes misinterpreting because we're dumb.
And then lastly, the last thing they don't release, which I think is crucial information, is viewing trends by demographic and region. So you don't know, like they might put Damsel out there, get 143 million views. 100% of those views can be from, North Korea.
Yeah.
I don't know why I went with,
I don't know.
I don't know why I went with historically something that does not allow American content in its borders.
Okay. Try this. The population of Russia as of the beginning of this year was 146 million, so maybe almost everyone in Russia watched the movie one time, and that was
There was
it.
a mandate. There was a mandate, and those 3 million people who didn't watch it.
Yeah, they went right to the front lines in Ukraine. Cannon fodder.
Dear God.
You have to support Damsel. Putin demands it.
I wanted to just break this down for just one more second, because this is where I find the danger in this sort of, like, we are controlling over the metrics that we're releasing. This is going to that Paramount decree of, like, there's some shady stuff potentially going on here, and just the potential for it is enough to me to regulate some of this a little bit more.
I bet that'll happen. Seems likely. Yeah,
listen.
No crack down.
No one talks about this shit, so I feel like it's in my blood. I gotta do it.
No, shine a light on it, man. Yeah, no, I'm sure. Yeah, let's go.
I mean, the needle's not gonna move. I recognize that, but you know what? I am at least acknowledging the needle.
Yeah, no. Let's push that needle. We have a movie podcast. It makes sense for us to talk about corruption in the movie industry. Please go on. I'm not even being facetious now.
I think the headline nature that we live in, when you see 143 million views on something without digging deeper into that, you just stick to that headline. Like, when you start to do the math, it falls apart almost immediately. Now, I know this isn't a one-to-one comparison, but if you had 143 million views at the theater, that equates to about a $2 billion box office gross. Accounting for, like, a $15 movie ticket.
Oof. Okay, yeah. Well, then those numbers are lies. There's no way.
Well, but this is where you need to, like, where I think everyone needs better context, because, as I said, it's not one-to-one. Streaming services are cheaper. So I paid for the $7.99 version of Netflix for 1 month to watch this movie. And
factor that in.
Things. But Yeah, $7.99, cheaper than $15.99. The ease at which to watch it, if you are an ongoing subscriber, rather than getting in the car, getting your family, choosing to see the movie, sitting down, paying for concessions, like, it's easier for me to press play on my TV than it is for me to go to the theater.
Yeah.
But they are banking on you making the erroneous comparison, I think, to a degree. And so without telling me who's rewatching it, who's dropping off, suddenly, like, even if okay, let's just say you took 1 in 10 people of that 143 million that would have paid for a ticket to go see this.
Yeah.
That is theoretically a tasty box office hit, right?
Yeah.
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me on that, but let's just say it's closer to, $200 million.
Sure.
I think that's bullshit too. You look at what this film is, it's going to have 0 word of mouth. It would drop off in 2 weeks. And I think this would be a complete box office failure at that point.
This is just simply not the sort of movie that would get made if the option was for a, theatrical wide release. And typically I say that with kind of a sour tone because I'm lamenting that good movies aren't getting made. But this movie is very much a creature of streaming. Like, this is from start to finish, there was never any question of we're going to make the kind of movie that people leave their house and get in the car to go see. That was never on the board.
Yeah, exactly. So it begs, to me, a question that once I start having questions like this, then I'm like, okay, there needs to be more public information. Because if you are determining that a movie Damsel is worth $70 million to invest in, that means they think that's going to have, at minimum, a $70 million value toward long-term subscriptions.
Yeah.
I mean, does that sound logical?
I mean,
and that's assuming you're breaking even on, investing in it.
I think that the concept of the value or return on investment with Netflix spending $70 million to make this extremely forgettable and bland movie, the return on investment of this is difficult to quantify because I think what Netflix benefits from the most is just you turn on Netflix and every time you turn it on, it's like, oh, wow, there's 6 new movies on here. Oh, wow, Millie Bobby Brown. She's in Enola Holmes and Stranger Things. And it's you don't even necessarily watch the movie. Like, you probably just go and put on Friends or whatever the fuck they have on Netflix. I say that as though I don't also have Netflix. I don't know. But, like, the whole thing is just... It's making you feel good about the subscription, thinking, oh, I could watch this. It's Schrodinger's movie. This movie could be good, and it has names that I recognize in it. So I think more than anything, these movies are just here to show up and remind you that, oh, there's so much content on Netflix. I could not possibly cancel my subscription. I could not possibly complain when they up my subscription every year. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to earmark that and return to it, I think, maybe toward the end of the episode, because it plays into, some thoughts I have. But
I must gently beg you to maybe lead us into talking about the movie a little bit, because I feel as though the audience might want to know what has irked us. So what are they mad about this time?
I'm not mad about this movie, really. No. Okay, this is, I think, important context. And we'll transition now. We always ask here, did you know, where was this movie on your radar? Did you know about it before we watched this? What's your experience? What's your Damsel experience?
My Damsel experience, I was, Christoph Waltz locked me to the bridge of a steamboat in the Congo and asked me to scream so Tarzan would rescue me. That's my Damsel experience. Huge deep cut, sorry. No, I knew nothing of this movie. I probably showed up on Netflix for me when I was trying to go watch whatever show I watch on Netflix. But I was not aware of it. Nothing really drew me to this. I didn't know it was a thing until we landed in this godforsaken dimension. How about you?
I've recognized that with a lot of modern films, the way I get turned on to them is through Letterboxd and what people like, especially streaming movies. As soon as I see a movie pop up in Popular with Friends or Popular on Letterboxd, I'm like, well, what the fuck is that? And then I'll go and explore it. Because, and I think this is going to be important for this conversation and just general context for me, I haven't had Netflix in 5 years. I got rid of it right before the pandemic.
What a great time.
I have moral issues with it beyond everything we just discussed regarding the whole Tiger King thing.
That is such a drop in the bucket of moral issues at Netflix. I mean,
Well,
I agree. I don't disagree with you at all, but wow. You want to talk about forgotten media, Tiger King. Jesus Christ. I haven't thought about that since like June 2020. Go on.
I know. And that's part of the problem. And so I didn't, you choose where you want to put your money, and your money supports things, and I chose to not support Netflix until this movie. So that said, Damsel, I think, did come up on Letterboxd at one point, and, my partner and I like to watch stupid movies, and for some reason it stuck up in my brain when I'm like, oh, isn't there a Netflix movie? Because she had Netflix. Isn't there a Netflix movie where Millie Bobby Brown has to fight a dragon? That sounds stupid and fun. Let's watch that. And we never did. And then it came up, the machine threw it as. So
wouldn't it be great if this movie existed in the context that you imagined it as? Wouldn't it be great if this movie was stupid and fun? Wouldn't it be great if this was just
it almost is.
What if it's just an Italian sword and sandal epic? What if it was just just fucking went for it?
Well, does it?
It does not go for it. I can tell you with a lot of certainty this movie does not go for it. This movie stays in a very safe place.
Okay, let's start talking about those places. Tell me about it.
Okay, here's the thing about Damsel.
Okay.
For everything I've said, this movie has good bones. There is a lot of conceptual stuff happening here. There's a lot of story structure stuff happening here, thematic stuff happening here. That's good. There's the I don't know. I don't know enough about home improvement, despite our previous podcast, to say with any certainty how a house is built. But the studs in the walls are there, and they're made of firm oak. That it's this whole subversion of the idea of a fairy tale. She marries her Prince Charming, but oh shit, he's an asshole, and he throws her into a pit. And then most of the movie, I've seen it described in reviews as Die Hard in a cave, and it's basically that. She's on her own. She's trying to get around obstacles and use her guile to escape. And then after, and along the way, she learns a bunch of stuff that recontextualizes things she was told earlier in the movie. And so there's smart stuff happening in here. There's a lot of bits in the movie, individual moments or elements that I liked.
I completely agree with that. Everything you just described is a movie I want to see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't wait to dig into well, where does this, what is the Emperor's clothes on this oak foundation?
Well, and look, speaking of the Emperor's clothes, I think this is a great example of that. Early in the movie, she has gone to the kingdom to get ready for her wedding, and there's this whole scene where she is dressed up in this elaborate wedding gown with the scaffolding underneath that gives the skirt a certain look to it and everything, and she's given all these different accoutrements. And then
I once heard that you can pronounce it accoutrements.
I heard that, but I like to go mall. I like to just really dial up the class. She's thrown into the pit then, and then in the course of escaping from the dragon and trying to solve all these problems, the wedding she's different pieces of the wedding dress and the jewelry are she's taking them off for utility purposes, or she's refashioning them into tools or something like that. And that is both pretty right across the plate. Yep,
yes.
The symbolism of her glitzy princess life is now slowly falling away and being refashioned into something more useful to her. It's not groundbreaking or profound, but when you compare elements in this movie, just certain thematic things that carry through, to a movie like Lightning Jack or Operation Fortune, where they really just threw spaghetti at the wall every day and saw what stuck, it's thought was put into parts of this, and
parts of it, yeah.
So there's these good bones, but then there was I'd like to believe that in an early draft of the script, there was a lot of meat on those bones of, like, interesting characters, fun dialogue, lore and world building, and things like that. Yeah. And that meat was just eaten away by the piranhas of middle managers and producers at Netflix reacting to data and trying to optimize for an algorithm.
I had a couple things to say here. One, I'm going to just address immediately, which is we throw a lot of shade at producers on this show.
Yes.
And I think in many cases that might be a little unfair. I think, because producers work hard to get films made.
Sure.
But they are the middle person between the filmmakers, and I would call producers filmmakers, and the executives. I would say the executives are the ones that are making the shitty decisions and imposing the shitty notes and all that stuff. And the producers are the annoying centrists that have to go between the two that help enforce those shitty notes.
Perhaps I am like the dragon in Damsel. I am so blinded by having had bad experiences with producers that I am casting aspersions on all producers as a whole. And you know what? I'm going to try and learn the deep thematic message of Damsel, which is that you shouldn't do that, or else you'll get burned by your own fire. So that's a good point. Hashtag not all producers.
Because I produce a lot of stuff, and I like to think that if I were to give notes, I would do it conscientiously, but that I come from a place of experience and know what I'm talking about to a degree. I wouldn't tell someone that we need to follow the algorithm, and so there needs to be a jump scare at minute 13 because that's when people are looking at their phones already. There
needs to be a jump scare in second 1, in my experience, to keep people from scrolling away from it. Continue.
So one of the things, and that I can't wait to dig into more examples of this as we go through it, is you talked about her thematically being a princess, like the fairy tale princess, the quintessential archetype when it starts out, and slowly as she goes through it and she becomes herself, she sheds those layers away.
Yeah.
On paper, and as a concept that is a really interesting idea to explore. In practice, now I know this is a fairy tale world, and we talked about this in Gretel and Hansel, where this isn't taking place in the Middle Ages. This is a fake world, right?
Sure.
That said, she's what, 18, 20 maybe?
Yeah.
And she's a princess having a princess life up to that point. When she starts shedding things, how does she know tourniquet?
Yeah.
When she's stripping her dress off and tying it around her burnt leg. Like, yeah. I get it. I get what's happening, but there is a suspension of disbelief that I'm like, it's not that she can't do that. It's that the movie has done no work to get me to the place where I'm like, oh, she was like this outdoorsy, like she preferred to be more of the huntsman than the queen, and therefore she knows all these things about outdoor survival. No, she was a princess. She was thrown in a pit. Now she's becoming, she's transforming into something else, and she knows tourniquet on herself for some reason.
Yeah, and she's doing it in like a day, basically. She's becoming like Rambo in one day. The first 35 minutes of this movie are just her either at home in the, Shittsville northern province where her father is a lord, and then it's her and her family coming to the kingdom, which is all very nice and beautiful and lush. It's filmed in Portugal, and boy, they use that location.
Her pastime is she likes to draw. It's not outdoorsy stuff. She draws these intricate labyrinths
mazes
and roses and all kinds of stuff that doesn't really have any thematic or like practical purpose for this film.
Well, she has to go through a maze. She looks at the map that the other surviving princesses. Landen,
shit.
This movie's so deep. When she first meets her prospective groom, and she's showing him like this drawing that she's done of a heart with this intricate maze-like pattern in it. I'm just looking at it and thinking, is this the Fantasyland version of the Cool S that everybody would draw on their homework in high school? This is what our society has lost. The Cool S's used to be so much cooler. But yeah, so she's there. she's hanging out in this new realm. She's meeting her handsome prince, and she's meeting the new, the queen played by Robin Wright and everybody. But
let's set up. I think it's important, just real quick, that this is an arranged marriage.
Yes.
This is the bringing together of two kingdoms, essentially. You've got the Ray Winstone land, and then you've got the Robin Wright land.
Yes. For my fellow Crusader Kings 3 players, basically, Robin Wright right-clicked... Well, she's always right-clicking. She's Robin Wright. But she right-clicked her mouse on Ray Winstone, brought up the drop-down menu, and selected Arrange Marriage, and then she cycled through her available offspring and Ray Winstone's available offspring and matched them up. Mm-hmm. This joke is going to be hilarious to me when I'm editing the podcast. No one else will get it. But
she's done that a lot, apparently. We'll find that out in a minute.
So the first 35 minutes is just her kicking around, kind of getting the lay of the land, getting ready for the marriage, and getting married. But in this time, we learn nothing about who Elodie is or what Elodie's deal is. What does Elodie... Like, what's her personality? Like, she's the daughter of a lord, so she's a wealthy kind of royal from this more impoverished area. How does she feel about that? Does she like that? Is she excited to one day like take a more active role in the royal family?
Is it as a writer? I guess I'm asking. This is a question to you, a writer.
You're a writer too, but okay.
Is it an interesting choice to give your character an indifferent feeling toward their life situation?
Okay, it would be an interesting choice if she was very much just kind of Daria-esque about the whole thing. Less Damsel, more Daria, and was just...
I'm always saying that.
This is what audiences were demanding it, and yet they gave us this. If she was like actively like kind of rolling her eyes at the whole thing, or kind of like an entitled, spoiled teenager about it or something, that would actually be a lot better, because the first 30 minutes would establish, hey, here's all these things about her that are kind of bad and not great, or here's the way that she acts, and then by virtue of being thrown in the dragon pit, she comes out on the other side having learned about herself, having changed, and we can see
she can't be indifferent anymore.
Yes, the physical change that she went through with just, the dress and everything changing and getting all fucked up. She is also reflected in the way that she treats people and acts. But in the first 35 minutes of this movie is basically...
There's no one for her to treat at the second half of this movie.
Well, that's also fair.
It's her and glowworms.
Yeah. And you know what? I think she's kind of a dick to the glowworms.
Not gonna lie, I kind of agree with you.
She's just using these fucking glowworms. Maybe they had their own thing going on, man. Ask them. It's a fucked up magic world. But so just she starts the movie. She is a nice, pretty girl who loves her sister, and she meets a cute boy, gets thrown in a dragon pit, and at the end of the movie, she is a nice, pretty girl who loves her sister. Has not changed.
Yeah, but I would say I wouldn't overlook the thematic element of the sisterly bond, because I think that plays somewhat, maybe not effectively, but there are threads to her connection to the other princesses that were thrown in the pit to a degree.
Yeah. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, there's definitely a sisters doing it for themselves vibe that comes up in here. Talk to me about the sisterly bond. Are you referring to the sisterly bond between her and her actual biological sister?
Yeah.
What? Tell me about that bond. What strikes you about the bond between her and her sister?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they hold hands on a pillow.
I mean, we don't have siblings. We don't know what it's like. Maybe you're doing that all the time.
I'm not a princess, despite wanting to be sometimes.
I think you are.
I don't know. I mean, there's this. It's there. It's not like nuanced. You can't say there's nothing, because it is something. It's just very bland and blatant.
It's binary filmmaking. There's nothing there, but there's something there. It's not
there. It's a 1, not a 0.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
She and her sister's relationship is they smile at each other and they giggle about stuff.
Sweetly.
Oh, sweetly, yes. As opposed to all of that abrasive and harsh giggling.
Hey, have you heard of sibling rivalry? They seem like they're a team to a degree. She has a certain, like... maybe not protective vibe, but like you feel that she's the older sister. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you feel like she's the older sister. It's like there's just nothing going on in the relationship. And again, the first 35 minutes of the movie, it's mainly her looking at beautiful surroundings, her and her sister giggling or saying, "Oh my gosh, this castle is so beautiful." And it's like
no, I have the exact line, and it's my favorite line from the movie.
Oh, there's so many bangers. Give it to me.
Elodie's sister, her little sister, when they're in Robin Wright's kingdom and looking around the castle, what's the sister's name?
Oh, Floria.
Floria, when they're being introduced to Robin Wright for the first time, it's charming, but it's a tourniquet situation where she goes, "I like your castle, like a lot."
My liege, your castle is totally tubular.
I mean, you're veering close to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure there, and I don't know to be offended or to appreciate that.
But there's just nothing in their relationship of like, I don't know. I mean, they don't need to be at odds with each other. There doesn't need to be conflict, but it is literally just, there is a half hour of this film that is just the two of them kind of giggling about how nice the castle is, and not any sense that like, hey, like their mom died. Are they working through that?
Right.
Hey, like, does Floria feel something about the fact that Elodie is kind of growing up and is going to marry a guy and won't be there for her as much?
Okay, let's talk about that, because it is a good example of like Angela Bassett is their stepmother, and
lucky them.
It's like it's presenting things as story without telling you any story, but then like it becomes superficial because it's like the characters just take everything as matter of fact. There's no texture to those details. Like the fact that their mother died and Ray Winstone married Angela Bassett, that's interesting.
Yeah.
The characters don't think so at all. It's just so matter of fact that no story or background or comes out of that.
Yeah. I mean, she and her stepmom don't necessarily super get along. Like, she kind of thinks that her stepmom is annoying or extra.
But not an evil stepmother, which is interesting for a fairy tale world.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, her stepmother is kind of the one person who gets to the bottom of what's going on or tries to stop, like, senses that something is fucked up about the wedding. We will have it.
It's Angela Bassett, of course.
Yeah.
Who else is going to do that?
Yeah, but now she's not Detective Justice. That was her partner in Vampire in
That's
Brooklyn.
Correct, yes.
But she is a detective. She can get to the bottom of all kinds of mysteries. So, yes, but it seems like her stepmother is mainly just kind of like annoying to her, but there's not any real chafing or difficulty or texture. There's not texture to any of these things. And it makes me think, again, Gretel and Hansel, a movie that is obviously better than this one. But, like, we learned so much about Gretel in that movie through her relationship with Hansel. She loves Hansel. She is very protective of Hansel. She also low-key hates Hansel and thinks that he's ruining her life and wishes he wasn't there. But she feels
the witch is making her feel that, but yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can dissect Hansel and Gretel or Gretel and Hansel in another episode.
We already have.
We can go back in time and do that one again. Great episode.
Hey.
There's just a lot of, like, that there is inherent conflict in the way that they're interacting with each other and in what they're dealing with. And instead, for a big chunk of the early part of this movie, we're just watching them have a good time together and not really have a care in the world.
I agree with you, and I think it distills down to this. Like, at the end of the day, Elodie, Millie Bobby Brown, could have been an only child. And this movie wouldn't have changed one iota.
Yeah, except it would have been better representation for people like us. So the whole family is there. They're in the kingdom of God. I gotta look up the name of this. There's so many stupid names. Freaking fantasy stuff. This is the beauty of Gretel and Hansel. There weren't names for anything. Aria. They're in the capital of Aria, this big castle-y town. And her stepmother, Angela Bassett, tries to hang out with the queen a little bit ahead of the wedding,
Yeah.
Queen Robin Wright, and, it's like, oh, we're going to be family. Let's try and get to know one another a little better. And Robin Wright just completely ices her out and is like, oh, you used to be a rope maker before you were married. And, you're low class, and we don't need more family. We need the alliance, and that's it. And she just kind of blows her off.
Yeah.
And Angela Bassett, previously, before this, has been very excited. She's been the biggest proponent of this marriage and talking about, like, you have to be proper and, like, look nice for your husband to be and all of these things.
I don't have a step parent, but I felt that, like, just a step parent going above and beyond to really just make the bonds and try to be a parent, not replacing a parent, but like, we're gonna do this and I'm gonna be here for you. Like, I felt it because it's Angela Bassett.
Yes, Angela Bassett very, very expertly portraying the role of the overeager step parent who gets on someone's nerves. But so she's very big on pushing for this wedding. After having the conversation with Robin Wright, she is then so put off by the fact that the queen was mean to her that she comes rushing to Elodie's quarters where she and her father and her sister are, and like, we have to call off the wedding. We can't do it. These people are bad. They are wrong. They are mean. These are bad people, and we shouldn't get involved with them.
Yeah.
So, Lady Bayford, listen. You're not wrong. The queen was definitely being a dick to you. She exhibited a lot of elitist and classist behavior. But the thing is, you live in a feudal society, and the entire structure of that society is premised on elitism and classism, and that system is why you wear nicer clothes and live in a nicer house than everybody back in your kingdom. So I'm like, I don't know why you're suddenly surprised that the queen, like your whole society says that God chose this woman's ancestors to rule over everyone else. Why are you, like, shocked that she's not nice to you? Like why is that a deal breaker for this marriage? Like, I don't like, what world were you living in that this is the red flag for you?
Maybe she's a change maker. Maybe she is out there trying to represent better community relationships, deeper meanings between societies and people, creating bridges, fixing problems. Maybe she wears those nice clothes, but she could be wearing nicer clothes, and she chooses not to because she wants to give back to her community and spread the resources.
Oh, okay. So you're suggesting that their subjects up in the northern provinces, it's like the people in Monty Python and the Holy Grail who are just an autonomous commune and they take turns being king. It's a very egalitarian feudal system.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay. Well, look. What are your thoughts about Angela Bassett trying to put the kibosh on the wedding?
This is something that the film does a handful of times throughout that is part of its sloppy storytelling, and I would say might be part of the algorithmic structure to streaming content, which is characters act in a way on information there's no way they would have, but they act on the information that we, the audience, have.
Yeah.
So at this point in the film, Angela Bassett has had zero exposure to the weird former princess who is still in the castle, kind of. Okay.
Yeah.
What's that? Okay. I realize I'm going to have to circle back to this point, but...
No, circle back.
Do we get a ghost princess, or were they like overlapping weddings here?
Okay, so early on, when Elodie first gets to her room in the tower, she looks out the window, and there's another tower where there's another girl who kind of steps out on the balcony for a second, and then she's called back in by ladies in waiting. And then later, when Elodie is in the dragon caves, she finds that girl's corpse. So
yes,
yeah, so it implies that they're just doing like back-to-back weddings. They've just got like girls constantly in and out, getting princessed and chucked in the dragon hole.
Which I love mythology, and so the fact that there's no like, they go into a little bit of the reasoning for the dragon and the sacrifice, but not like the process of it. And I don't want to like get bogged down in a procedural thing, but like if they're tossing princesses in there that quickly, like, is there going to ever be enough blood to satisfy this dragon to break the curse?
Yeah,
Is it just a constant flow? Well, because as Elodie escapes from the cave for the first time, yes, it happens twice in this film.
You get your money's worth for cave escapes in this film.
She interrupts another wedding.
They're just to the same guy she married like a day ago. Aren't any of the guests like, yo, didn't we just watch this guy marry some other girl?
Wouldn't at some point the fiefdoms start talking to each other going, yeah, it was weird. They got married and my daughter immediately disappeared. Oh yeah, mine did too, and I thought that was kind of weird. And it just, is it coincidence? I think it might just be a coincidence, right? Let's just let them keep doing what they're doing. At least we got our gold.
Exactly. I don't know. No need to ask questions. I'll just, marry another lady and have a bunch more daughters. Another great Crusader Kings 3 strategy. Yes, I have so many questions about the basic contours of the dragon curse, because it's like, it's not even a curse. It's just like an agreement.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So the movie starts out, the very first thing you see, when you start streaming this movie, the movie cleverly begins with an exciting action sequence to keep you from scrolling away. And it's a king and a bunch of knights going into the dragon cave, trying to fight the dragon. Boy, that doesn't go very well.
A quick question for you.
Yeah.
Why are there only two different types of dragon designs in media? There's the train and there's the game. There's the Train Your Dragon cartoon version, and then there's the Game of Thrones dragon. I
don't know what. I felt like the dragon in this movie actually looked sort of unique compared to the train versus game dragon. Which side of the coin do you think this dragon falls on?
Oh, this is game for sure. I mean, granted, there's a few more interesting details. It like bleeds gold, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
But at this point, it looks like a dragon. Hey, that's a dragon. There's a dragon in this. Like, I remember when Game of Thrones first came out, I had a whole experience with that, and I'm not going to go into the full story, but like, I was not into the first season, and I said, if there's a dragon in this last episode, then I'll watch season 2.
Oh.
And the last moment of the last episode of the last season, you see a dragon, and I'm like, oh, fuck, all right, fine.
Gotcha on a technicality.
Yeah, I ended up liking it for, most of its run, but we've just kind of like, okay, we got the dragon template, and we could do a few variations on it, but there's not been like a re-envisioning or even like any kind of variation on what dragons look like.
We need
for a fantasy. It's not like it's a bear. We know what bears look like. I hate it, but we do. Dragons are fantasy. We could make them look like however we want to look like. Why do they always have to be? I don't know. This one's a little more cat-like. I'll say that.
Yeah. I like that it's kind of walking around on all fours. First, I think you should find the girl with the dragon template and ask her to make some changes to it and let her know that there's that level of freedom. Stupid. I think maybe part of the difference between the trains and the games dragons is that the Train Your Dragon dragons, like, they need to have bigger and more expressive faces in order to be seen as equals and characters in the movie, as opposed to here where they can be realistic and spooky, even though this dragon winds up being the good guy.
I'm just saying they're one or the other in films. Like,
true.
They're cartoony or they're this kind of amorphous. Like, the detail in their face is a little too much to really discern any emotion from them outside of just like scary fire breather.
Yeah. I mean, I think I can discern that if the dragon is breathing fire at me, it's probably pissed off. So I don't know. I'm a natural empath, though.
If you look at like Godzilla and the various designs of Godzilla over the years, like, you have a fully fledged character in that, and even though it does differ from film to film, like, it's expressive to a degree that you need it to be for whatever scenario it's in. This is just like angry dragon mode 100% of the time, and I feel like it's that in every dragon content I see.
Yeah, it's bad dragon representation.
Sorry, I took us on a major divergence with that.
The point is, beginning of the movie, King and a honestly irresponsibly low number of knights go into the dragon cave to fight the dragon. The king was like, it's a huge, fearsome, fire-breathing flying beast, 12 guys, swords, couple of crossbows, that should be fine, we'll knock this thing out, we'll be home before lunch. The dragon obliterates all the dudes and pounces on the king. And ultimately, you know, we cut away before the king dies or anything, but what we later find out is that the dragon let the king live, but made a deal with the king, basically, where it's like, in exchange for not killing you and destroying your kingdom, I want you to send me, every generation, 3 of your daughters for me to eat in the caves. And Robin Wright, quite cleverly, has now come up with the plan of, okay, we're going to basically just import lots of girls from the hinterlands, marry them off to one of my idiot sons, do like a blood ritual where I get a little bit of our blood into their blood so they have royal blood in them,
Slice
and then
their
immediately
palms open and shake hands.
Yeah, exactly, like you're joining a secret society, and then immediately throw them down the pit to satisfy my deal with the dragon on a technicality. First, I want to say a thing I like about this movie. That's fucked up, but that's a good plan, Robin Wright. I massive respect for you coming up with that and apparently making it work. But like, so it's this intro with the king though. A title card tells us that like that's centuries ago. Like the main action of the story starts a couple hundred years after that. So
dragons last a long time.
Dragons last a long time. This dynasty, I guess, has lasted a long time. So how many girls have they thrown down there? Like thousands? And
okay. Good question.
But also, if it's like 3 girls per generation, but there's already like she sees like flashbacks to and evidence of like maybe like I don't know 9 or 12 different girls down there, and it seems like on the same day that she's getting sent down there, there's other girls getting married off at the same time. Like. Do they have to do all of them on the same day? That seems like a lot.
Well, maybe that's how they skirt the like suspicion of like they don't tell the other kingdoms that they're getting married. You know, it's kind of a hush hush event. This is exclusive. I don't know. I was trying to think of a term for an exclusive party, and all I could start thinking of was the parties P. Diddy had, and I didn't want to go down there, but I did anyway. So,
okay, this is how you describe an exclusive party. You go up to the castle, and Steve Rubell is standing outside, and he's like,
Perfect,
not with that /doublet. Not with that /doublet. And you have to take your shirt off and show how hot you are to go to the wedding.
But anyway, we see the Elodie is the middle bride in this threesome here. Threesome is what I called it.
Yeah, about tree fitty.
And so they're just like, get it over and done with right away. Just like, you're of Marian age now. This is the sacrifice you have to do to be, in our lineage. Once you kill off these 3 girls, then you can marry whoever the fuck you want to.
Yeah.
And that's why Robin Wright is so interested. She doesn't want to have a relationship with Angela Bassett because she's like, I know what I'm going to do to your kid, and I don't want to have anything to do with you because this is just transactional. I just need to make sure Dragon's not going to come burn my head off.
Okay, so yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. That, like, the most interesting part of the movie to me is really not the girl doing Die Hard in a cave trying to escape the dragon. It's like how mentally fucked everybody in the capital has to be. Like, they know this is happening. They're at these weddings watching girls who are gonna like die that night who don't know it. Like, all the guests at these weddings, all of the servants and everything, like, a better movie, these people are like crying and they have a haunted look in their eyes and there's a horrible pallor over the land, and these people are like trying to grapple with the weight of the blood cost of the life that they live. This is such an interesting premise, and to see all of this stuff in the capital and everything, it's just like it's Portugal. Looks good, there's a vineyard. The prince is handsome and he's sweet and he's cute, and he does not seem to have any qualms about what's going on. He does not seem to be doing anything to try and cope with it. It's just there's so much edge that could have been there that got sanded right off.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be curious. It's another thing we don't know much about, unless, the few very, very select exceptions where, how does Netflix acquire its content? Like, was this a spec script? Did someone submit this? Was this a passion project? Did they option it? It's not based on anything. Did they just decide, like, the numbers are telling us we need a YA fantasy story, and so they pulled together a team? Did they put a package together? I don't know. Like, Millie Bobby Brown has made a lot of money for Netflix, so we're like, we need to get you another project to make you happy.
I think it's really that. I mean, I was looking into this because based on the bones of the script and the almost like reading it and being like, oh yeah, I remember the page in Save the Cat that described some of the concepts that I am now seeing play out on screen. I was like, was this a fucking Blacklist script? I've not been able to find any information. It seems just like it was basically like the first mention of this movie. I think this movie started coming together in 2022. And Netflix just packaged it with Dan Mazeau, who it seems like was just hired to put a concept together. And Millie Bobby Brown had just made a bunch of money for them with Enola Holmes, which made a bunch of money, gained a lot of views, I guess, whatever.
Kept a lot of people subscribed.
Yeah. So
is that the model? Is it, let's not see how much money we can get, it's how much money do we not lose by keeping subscribers?
Yeah, it's just what is going to keep people on the hook? What do you guys want to see to not go to the trouble of figuring out how to cancel your subscription? So no, but this doesn't really have the feel of, it does not seem to have come from anything else. I don't know. And if it was a spec script, this is also the problem with a movie not getting a theatrical release. There's not a press tour. There's not junket interviews. There's just information is not being generated about this. The sheer volume.
'Cause publicity costs money.
Yes, exactly. And the publicity for the last song generated more information than we could possibly synthesize for one movie. Whereas this, a movie with a much larger budget, there's almost nothing.
Well, should we pivot to a more controversial topic?
I'm interested. Yes, what's this topic?
Truman, we're at the end of the season, and we've been podcasting for over 8 years now.
Yeah.
So we're buddies. We can speak it real, right?
Yeah, we can. Well, we can keep it real. Is speaking it real a new thing that we're doing?
It's what I do. It's my version.
Okay, speak real to me, buddy. I agree. We're in this.
We've talked in many episodes this season about wigs.
Oh no. Oh shit. There were probably wigs in this. Oh fuck. Oh god. Okay. All right.
You've kind of answered my question for me. Can you recognize extensions?
Oh no! Why would I be able to recognize extensions, Landen? If I watched Vampire in Brooklyn and my wig alarm didn't go off, why would I be able to notice extensions?
Every person outside of the prince, I think every single person in this movie is wearing a wig.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised. It's fantasy. It's old time shit.
Millie Bobby Brown literally has to cut her hair off in this movie.
Well, yes, she has to cut her hair off, and also a big part of her character on Stranger Things is having like a shaved head or short hair. So, and this is probably she's trying to accommodate shooting schedules for that as well. So, I guess that makes sense. Okay, so who's got the extensions?
This is where I'm kind of curious. I think that for a part of it, Millie Bobby Brown has extensions. It's easy to dye your hair, I guess, but like when you're going from like, she has very red hair in this movie, and she has typically brown hair, and what the one that really stuck out to me though was Angela Bassett. Her wig, which is it's more tied up around her head. I don't know, and Ray Winstone, the long king hair. Like everybody is wearing wigs. Anyway, it was just every direction I looked, I'm like, what is Truman's experience with this?
What is Truman
Has he learned
seeing?
anything through this season?
No, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You mentioned Ray Winstone's king hair, and I hope that the name of the store where they bought all the wigs for this movie was called King Hair. No, man, I don't think it's that so much that I can't see wigs as it is that I am just so trusting. I think that I just I'm not a cynic like you, I guess. I'm not looking at a person and trying to find the lie in their hairline. I'm instead accepting what's given to me and trusting that people would not deceive me under any circumstances.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I will say this is pretty good wig work. For the most part.
Okay, that's good. It's good to know that they went for it in one department, and that was the wig work department.
Well, no, okay. So to shatter the auteur theory, I think some of the better aspects of this are costuming. I think why are you laughing at me?
I just love this idea that all of the film bros are there holding up Damsel as the example of the auteur theory in action. It's like,
no, of course not. But the conversation has to start somewhere, and
it started at the first episode of the podcast when you first said there was no auteur theory. Go on, keep talking.
I think the costuming in this movie is really, really quite sophisticated, and especially Millie Bobby Brown's, who has to have. I don't particularly like the narrative function of stuff like the dagger in her dress, but to develop something that can have utility and different phases throughout, and go through being singed, and what does each layer of it look like, and what is its function within the story at any given time, that's a lot of design and a lot of work that goes into that. And just want to call out Amanda Monk, who worked on all that. So good job, Amanda Monk. She also did the Dungeons and Dragons movie. So
okay. You see that right there might explain. They got someone who knows their stuff for fantasy worlds.
Amanda Monk, costume designer. You know what else she did?
What else did she do?
She did 7 episodes of a little TV series called This Time with Alan Partridge.
Oh my gosh, Alan Partridge had some very impressive fits on that show, both emotional fits, but also the clothes that he's wearing. Wow, okay, a true legend. She can do high fantasy and she can do high farce within British television. I hope I'm not taking us too far astray. Since you're talking about the costumes, can we just talk some about the world building?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. So there's not any world building in this, and that bummed me out.
Yeah, it is oh yeah, this is the field with the castle in it. And that's the castle that has a mountain next to it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, this is the throne room, and this is the other room. It's the most came with the frame fantasy world. I in high school played in Dungeons and Dragons campaigns written by a 14-year-old that had much deeper and better established fantasy environments than this. I feel like if you're gonna set your movie in an original fantasy environment, that gives you a lot of exciting opportunities to kind of build a world and set up the kind of lore and culture of this mystical land that your characters inhabit.
Yeah.
And
it's expensive though.
Okay. I'm so glad you said that, Landen. I am so glad you said that. Two-part response.
I can say it again, Truman. That's expensive.
No, it's not. Well, no, it's not. Okay, so look, a movie called Gretel and Hansel that we watched.
Yes. Yes.
That is a very pared down movie. That is a very pared down setting. That movie's budget was 1/14 the budget of this movie. I did the math.
Yes. Yeah.
But the world of that movie feels so much more lived in and real than the world of this movie. And they don't do a lot. They give you so few details about the world that they live in. Because that movie begins with, in Gretel and Hansel, the story of the girl in the pretty pink hat. And it's this legend and this fairy tale that is part of the culture of this world that is all about this idea of never accept a gift from anyone because it's always a trap, basically. And that sets the theme of the movie, and that also kind of you going into every interaction in that world that they live in. It's okay, the culture of this world is shit is really bad and everyone is suspicious of everybody else, and it's that gives texture to the world they live in, even though we never see more than 3 characters on screen at a time and never more than 1 building.
I am going to say a word to you.
Okay.
And it is a very loaded word, I realize, but I hope you'll appreciate it.
And get the bleep button
That
ready.
word is touche.
Okay. So
I was ready to be argumentative about it, thinking only in terms of the conceptual designs and the visualization of those concepts. In terms of like, you need artists to develop the world, you need conceptual artists to develop what the world will look like, the production designers, if you will.
Yeah.
Then you need the visual designers, the FX designers to build the world out. But you're right, you can do world building through the evocative nature that Gretel and Hansel does. They lean into mythology to set up the not just the physical world, but just the the ethos that the world lives in. And
yes.
You're exactly right. This movie starts with one of the most eye-rolly lines, and in another scenario I might have immediately turned it off. But
you're one of the drop-offs.
I am one of the drop-offs. It's when you're spending it doing that rather than this world building you're talking about, the line is something like, instead of the story that opens Gretel and Hansel to set the kind of mythological stakes and this was happening for millennia, for before humankind even existed. Here you have the first lines spoken in voiceover by Elodie.
Mm-hmm.
There are many stories about chivalry, where the heroic knight saves the damsel in distress. This is not one of them.
This is not your daddy's fairy tale. Get ready for Damsel, motherfuckers.
And it's just like Babe Ruth pointing to the stands. Only it's not. It's like, whoever was, C-list hitter on the Brooklyn Yankees at that time. Brooklyn Yankees? I hope that's correct. Ooh.
Folks, if you were listening
Brooklyn
to this
Dodgers.
podcast for accurate sports facts, you were in the wrong place.
It's Brooklyn Dodgers, but I think he was also a New York Yankee. Holy shit. I'm gonna be just blown up on the message boards about this.
Yeah, everybody's gonna log on to the V Bulletin message boards and post about you. It is very much the movie calling its shot, but it's just calling the most weak sauce shot of all time. I mean, right on down to, I almost wonder, was that a note that it's like, we need to say the word damsel immediately so people know why the movie is called Damsel.
I think so.
Yeah.
You need to know that you press play on the right thing. Also, it is, though, that straight down the line thing is, because, okay, I got Netflix and I'm like, I'll watch a few other things on here to, fully support my viewpoints on streaming generated content, where the poster is her holding a sword at the camera, bloodied and bruised. The name of the movie is Damsel. Then the first line of the movie is, this is not that story. It's so much a no shit sort of reaction to it that it's like, who needs this level of hand-holding?
Somebody who is scrolling through their Instagram stories the second they push play, and someone who just needs to be reminded repeatedly what movie they're watching.
But do those people actually exist? I mean, I know the culture of movie watching and TV watching has changed, and I'm not criticizing it. It's a different thing than I'm used to in my preference, but it is what it is, and that's their experience. Are they still that dumb that they need that? I don't think so.
I think the people who run Netflix take a pretty dim view of people's intelligence. I absolutely tell you, the second screen experience is a real thing. I have written things in the past that were written with the intention of people are going to be looking at their phone or on a different page while this is playing, so write accordingly. I think that people who are looking at their phone while a movie are playing are still smart enough to just pick up context clues and follow a movie, but I think that the executives who run these services are just, they live in fear of an audience ever being even slightly confused. They assume that if an audience sees something on screen and they don't immediately understand it, that their response will be to not only turn it off, but also unsubscribe from the streaming service and maybe then go kill the executives.
Is it like a 3-strike process? If they drop off of 3 things, then they're like, I don't need that streaming service, and so they cancel? Is that the fear, maybe? We're speculating. Who the fuck knows?
I don't know. I just know that I worked on a streaming web series many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, whatever. It doesn't matter how many years ago it was, where there was like one moment in it where a bunch of bad guys are beating up a homeless person in a kind of trash-strewn riverbed, and we had written into the script, one of the bad guys picks up a pink baseball hat with "Gone Squatchin" written on it and puts it on the person's head, and then they keep beating him. And we wrote it in because it's like, that's kind of a funny and kind of like twisted thing for these bad guys to do. It shows how sadistic they are, whatever. And when they came back with notes, one of the executives had flagged that and said, this is kind of confusing. Can we get rid of this? And it's like, there's nothing like confusing about that. It's just like they put a hat on a guy. But they are so worried that anything on screen is not immediately discernible and not immediately followable that things get the axe. But look, before we venture into the caves, I know you already said touche about world building, but I have to keep sword fighting for one more moment, because it's just you already agree, you surrendered on the whole it costs money, it's expensive thing. I'm just saying, like, this movie, they spent a lot of money to create the facsimile of a fantasy world. Like, it still cost a lot of money to do the CGI.
Most of it's spent on the dragon, a main character made out of computer animation, but
sure, but it still costs a lot of money to rent a castle in Portugal. It costs a lot of money to build the CGI models of some of these spaces. I'm not saying the entire castle we see in the shots is real. I'm saying that there are close-up shots where they clearly went to a castle that exists. The movie was filmed in Portugal at Portuguese heritage sites.
A courtyard of a castle.
Still, you got to rent that. You got to spend, like, they just spent money.
That's fair.
They spent money on getting the costume lady from This Time with Alan Partridge and also Dungeons and Dragons. They spent money on the props and all the stuff.
Say her name.
Yes, Amanda Monk. But they spent all this money on all of these other things to make it look like a fantasy world, but then they don't. It costs you nothing to then just infuse texture into that in terms of, like, what is their religion, what is their culture of this foreign land where Elodie presumably is going to be feeling out of place. Well, there is no culture there. There's no culture in the place that she came from. So she's
the movie. You just gave me an idea. The movie doesn't need this, but maybe I'll earmark this for my own stories. What if it was not a sacrifice to the dragon? What if it was a religion to the dragon? And when Elodie was sacrificed, she goes down there and meets the dragon and finds out that no, it's not a religion to the dragon. The dragon is prisoner of the royal family.
That would be cool. That would be...
I'm going to write that.
Yeah.
No one else steal that idea. I came up with it on my own without Truman's help.
Landen is going to be the credited writer on Damsel 2, Electric Dragaloo. But it's like when they actually do the wedding, which is kind of like, the big centerpiece of the whole thing, it's just, we cut to the courtyard, there's a bunch of people gathered there, and then it's Elodie...
Is there a bunch? There's a smattering of people there.
There is a dusting of people. It is not a grand royal wedding by any means.
No, it's not.
But
this kingdom has 40 people in it.
Yeah, it's kind of the equivalent of getting married by a justice of the peace at City Hall. There's like one official witness there, and you're just doing it for tax purposes. But like, we cut, smattering of people, Elodie and Prince whatever are standing there, and there's some kind of officiant wearing some kind of costume, and we cut into the scene and he just says, "You may kiss the bride." And it's like, oh, okay, not any kind of semblance of what they believe or like a aphorism or what's the culture of this. It just...
That would turn people off, Truman. You have to be as non-denominational as possible.
Kind of confusing. Do we need this? So I wanted to harp on this because it's like they did the expensive world building, but they didn't do the cheap world building of creating just basic lore to infuse into the background of the story that would give this that would make this movie memorable.
Yeah. Hey folks, we learned something today. And you know what? I think we all need to be big enough to say, I'm not too smart that I can't learn something every day of my life.
Wow. Me, I never learn anything because I'm a movie genius over here. I have opinions about texture and opinions about world building.
Was the dragon wearing a wig?
No, the dragon was wearing a bald cap because it actually the dragon was growing its hair out for another role. Yeah. But they had to have one for this.
Okay, I have a series of just randomized questions for you to maybe get us into cave stuff.
Okay.
Into and through cave stuff.
The cave stuff is so simple, so it's not going to be. Yeah,
it is.
But yes, let's do it.
I'm going to start with the introduction of the cave.
Okay.
You've got we just went through the wedding ceremony, right? Then there's the secret ceremony, and you hint at religion, kinda. You got a bunch of weird culty people in masks watching this extra thing happen.
Yeah, they got blindfolded Todd Field off in the corner playing a piano, and Tom Cruise snuck in by showing his medical license.
Ding 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 ding.
Darn.
Okay, so you went through the whole blood mixing, etc., etc. The prince picks Elodie up off the ground, not before she says, "I don't want this." She doesn't want to be picked up off the ground. He's like, "Just let me do it." He does. He stops halfway across this bridge that is over a pit, basically, and he pauses and says, "I'm sorry." And she looks at him. He's like, "What?" And he throws her over.
Yep.
Throws her over into this dragon pit.
Dragon pit. Yep. Classic dragon pit.
First question to you.
Yeah.
As she's falling, and she hits a lot of like tree roots and rocks and canopies, and she passes by a hotel window where someone is having a little S&M moment and does a little as they see a little peekaboo moment. She hits the ground hard.
Yeah.
The air out of her lungs.
Wait. Was that the air coming out of her lungs, or did she land on Al Pacino instead of a woman? Hooah! She should have trusted nobody. That's what got her into this situation.
That's, you know what? My question to you is, outside of Elodie, this process of throwing a princess over into the dragon pit, do they expect those princesses to survive that fall?
I don't know. It seems like
are we just throwing dead bodies at the dragon hoping the problem will go away?
The royals are really just half-assing their end of the contract at this point. They're like throwing dead mice down there, or just garbage. Yeah, it seems like a damn miracle that all these different girls have been thrown down there, and they've survived like a 100-foot vertical drop onto rocks, and have been... like, they're definitely pissed off and a little bruised, but, like, not so injured that they can't be chased around by the dragon.
Yes. Okay. So, where did we land on the answer to that question?
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think they're supposed to be... Look, I think that the agreement is that they're supposed to be live, because the dragon, much like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park, they want to hunt. So a dead body isn't going to do you any good, much like lowering a goat into the raptor pen doesn't do the raptors any good.
I would say, royals, you need to look at your process of what you're doing here.
You were so busy trying to figure out if you could that you didn't ask if you should.
Question 2.
Yeah.
Numero dos. That's not. Nope.
No.
Anyway.
No.
The main area she falls into here.
Yeah.
Is a big area of action in multiple places in this movie. It's the area where the opening of this film takes place, where the unnamed king and his knights go and find and fight this dragon, and the curse begins.
Yeah.
Later, her father, regretful of having arranged this marriage, knowing he was sacrificing his daughter like Agamemnon to sway tides in his favor, goes down there to kill with his knights to kill the dragon and save Elodie.
Even fewer knights this time around. Maybe the problem was the first guy had too many knights.
The question is, it seems like a lot of people are getting pretty easy access into this cavern when she has a hard time getting out of it.
Yeah.
Where's the secret access point that everyone knows about but her?
It's like it seems like there's like a you go through a crack in the rocks, and then all of the knights who go in, like, slide down on a rope, like SEAL Team 6, to get in there. So maybe her issue is just that she can't get, like, she doesn't have a rope, so she can't get back up the thing. Because she later, like, she climbs up the rope that her dad and his failed knights left after they try to get her, so...
When that royal family sacrificed Rapunzel, man, they did not expect... they did not expect such a hasty exit.
Okay. Now, tell me without looking, did they make a dark fantasy Rapunzel movie sometime in the last 15 years?
Ooh, in the last 15 years? I'm sure someone has, yeah.
Gotta be, right? It just seems like a thing that I've seen it seems like a thing that I've seen a poster for that looks almost exactly like the poster for Damsel. It's like whoever the pretty young actress is, and her face is covered in like soot and like blood and stuff, and she's holding some kind of weapon and giving you a look that says I'm not your daddy's damsel.
In the first 10 minutes, she cuts her hair off and then uses it as a weapon.
That's pretty cool. I would see that. Real Go-Go Yubari moves.
Okay, next question for you. Have you ever stabbed a rock?
Is that a euphemism for something? I don't smoke crack, Landen. Why would you ask?
I don't think so. I mean, it sounds like it, but no, it's a literal question. Have you ever stabbed a rock?
I've never stabbed a rock. I assume you're referring to the multiple times that people plunge a sword into stone and it just kind of goes in there like it's a piece of cheese.
Yes, the moment when she's escaping the dragon and makes a jump onto a slanted rock cliff and saves herself with the dagger that was in her bodice by slowing her slide by jamming it into the rock, which was audacious enough to like, okay, I'll kind of buy that. Then the sequence becomes her climbing up the slanted rock by holding her weight on the knife that is stuck into the rock that she jammed in there, sliding her weight up, grabbing it, pulling the knife out like it's cheese just as easily as it's going in, slamming it in again higher up, and then just kind of working her way up this rock by continually stabbing the rock with a knife.
Yeah, look, I can tell you I have tried to do that in Dungeons & Dragons campaigns, and you have to roll really well a lot of times to make something like that work. Yeah, I don't know, but again, it's a fantasy world. Maybe the rocks are softer here.
Maybe the knives are sharper.
Hey, porque no los dos? I mean, if the rocks are softer, then that explains why all the girls are surviving the drop. Like, if the rocks are just made of sponge, then okay. I'm not questioning why no one is getting bludgeoned to death when they hit the ground.
Oh my god.
They don't really show this, but in her bed chambers in the castle, her pillows are just big old rocks. They're just boulders, but they feel like a dream when you lay your head on one. It's a Tempur-Pedic boulder.
Okay, now I want to pivot the conversation into maybe a little bit of icky territory.
I love when Landen makes these noises.
First, I want to ask okay, and I'm asking this genuinely because I'm not on social media. I am not part of, discourse of any sort regarding stars, etc. What is your take on Millie Bobby Brown? How do you feel about her?
I like her. I mean, watching her in this, I'm like, this movie's bad, but like she's a good actress. Like I think she's doing well with the thing I always say. She's doing well with the material she's given.
Well, I mean,
I loved the first season of Stranger Things, and with each subsequent season, I've gotten more and more fed up with that goddamn show, and I'm honestly dreading it coming back because I feel like I have to finish it.
It's not over yet?
There's one more season. It got delayed by the writers' strike. It's coming to a very indulgent ending. I'm sure they will do. Well, who am I to complain about long episodes of a thing? Anyway, I like Millie Bobby Brown. I don't think I've ever I've never really seen her in a thing as an adult that she's made where I have had my socks knocked off. But I think she's good at acting. What's the discourse that you're trying to get into about her?
Well, no, the discourse is going to be a little bit beyond her, but one thing I'm curious about is there seems to be, and I tried to have my partner explain this to me a little bit. There seems to be a little bit of a Anne Hathaway syndrome with her.
Oh, really?
Where suddenly people just hated her for no reason, just out of nowhere. And I was like, but why? What is, I haven't even seen her do anything much yet.
Yeah. What's to hate? She seems very nice.
So can you explain the culture to me a little bit? I mean, are you familiar with that? Am I way off base, or how do you get overexposed when you haven't done much?
I am not familiar with that. The fact that if the internet or if culture on the internet turned against her, but also I think a lot of this stuff happens on social networks that I'm not on or things that I'm not participating in. And also, as we learned lately with Blake Lively, there was suddenly everyone on the internet was hating her out of nowhere. And then later we found out that it was like a PR firm attached to a director who she was trying to file sexual harassment claims against. Like trying to drag her name down. So I don't know. I'm kind of at the point where if I see people online suddenly all deciding that there's a famous woman they hate who didn't do anything, it's kind of like, is this what's the story behind the story? Who's actually orchestrating this? So
interesting.
That could be a factor in what's happening there.
Okay. Yeah. I guess just not having any exposure to the places where you get overexposure to people leaves me feeling old and behind the times, and you know what? I'm not complaining about that. But I wanted to bring that up just because, like, I can only take Millie Bobby Brown on her performance here. I don't have all the baggage that comes with her that I think a lot of people do going into this movie. Mm-hmm. And I think, for the most part, she is... I really enjoy her performance. The parts of it I don't enjoy... The parts of her performance I don't enjoy, I feel like are notes given to her. Or as Lauren and Joe had mentioned, they became at the sacrifice of an edit.
Yeah.
How this thing ended up being assembled. Because a big portion of the middle of this movie, where there's no one for her to act against, is just like scene after scene of her being brutalized by the situation, and her just doing one of these screaming, like, I have to apply pressure to this burn wound on my leg. And it plays into, this is where the charge territory comes up.
Oh, we weren't in it already? Oh god.
No, we weren't.
Jump scare.
This feels like it is a child of the Tarantino school of strong female characters, where we define their strength through how much brutality they can survive.
Yeah.
And I find that to be bullshit. I will say the fantasy setting helps a little bit. And I think Millie Bobby Brown being a charming, charismatic performer carries it off. And that, as far as I know, Juan Carlos is not a problematic director. I don't have to have icky feelings about it. But
no,
just generally speaking, that level of character development, strength through that level of adversity, physical adversity, kind of is like eye-rolling to me.
This is my problem with it, as I alluded to earlier. Like, if she was starting this as an entitled, bratty princess character who has never had to struggle or sacrifice or go through any hardship, then it would be like, okay, well, thematically it makes sense. Oh shit, she has like a horrible burn now, or she has to tourniquet like a stab wound or something to keep herself alive. It's like, you're in the shit, you're learning to make hard choices and deal with real suffering and real consequences in a way you never have before. But because she just is like kind of a blank slate, normal, nice girl, and this all happens, it's like, but then by the end of it, she's so tough. It's like, this movie is just like making the case that it's suffering for suffering's sake. And it's not in service of a greater emotional change. It's just, nope, bunch of horrible shit happened, and you screamed and cried a lot.
Yeah. That's a huge, not only missed opportunity, but like, just, do you want to go there with it? Which is like, is the suffering showing her transformation into strength, or is it simply just, character versus nature, story tropes? the film kind of does neither, and I'm not necessarily advocating for one or the other or both or neither. Well, kind of neither, but like it's I don't know. I just it's whatever they decided on. It was the most uninteresting version of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that a lot of what it is it's just like, okay, the people are looking at their phones and glancing at the screen every few seconds or every few minutes, more like. What's the most, like, primal conflict that a person can glance at and get what's going on? And it's like, okay, she's badly wounded and trying to, like, drag herself through a narrow hole before, like, the fire fully engulfs her. You know immediately what that is. Like, so much of the movie is her just kind of, like, suffering her way through physical trials, and that reads quickly on screen.
What I understand about that, though, is, like, you take that and you combine it with this, I called it the tourniquet earlier, but another example of it, what was the dagger, too, that, was in her bodice and she stabbed the rock with. The crown. She's given a crown during the wedding, and she's wearing it. Like, she has all these things that she then, I think the movie's supposed to be making us think, oh, look how resourceful she is.
Yeah.
But then, like, it's not really adding anything to her character, and it just becomes somewhat like it takes away from the moment. There's a scene that I got like really excited about the concept and the look of it when she has gone through a number of trials. She's used the glowworms to heal herself, and she suddenly finds herself in, like, she sees the way out, but it is a like straight vertical tunnel of the sharpest crystals you can imagine.
Yeah.
And like just watching her go through that, like, that's enough.
Yeah.
It's what Lauren said on the Poseidon adventure, the Poseidon episode, where
it was an adventure.
It's not only the end of the world and snow has covered everything, the end of civilization, but there's wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, suddenly it's like she has been through so much, and she has to do one more physical feat of pulling herself out of this sharp-ass crystal tunnel.
Yeah.
But she's going to use the crown to do it. It actually seems like it's hindering her. So she's using the crown to put it over a crystal and pull herself up. But the crown isn't like protecting her from not getting cut.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be giving her leverage, but I'm like,
is it?
It's just as much leverage to hold on to the crown as it is to hold on to the fucking crystal.
Yeah. I don't know this for certain, but I have a dark and grim thought about things like this in the movie. So, yeah, she has all these different pieces of her wedding dress that she uses at different times to escape, culminating with the crown to climb up the thing. And also, she's injured and she uses there's glowworms in the cave that kind of in the way that maggots will eat dead flesh and had medical use back in the day for that. I'm sorry, Landen. Okay, and yet another reason we don't want to live in the 19th century. But like she puts these glowy, grubby worms on her wounds and they heal her. It's pretty impressive. If I were in the adjacent kingdom, I would be sending lots of people to the dragon cavern to like sell those grubs and make money in the healthcare biomedical field. Anyway, I think that all of these different aspects, it's video game shit. It's like these are inventory items, these are healing items, and I feel like this is probably a note or like something that came in the development process of the movie, where it was like, how can we gamify this for audiences who like Minecraft, for audiences who like, I don't know, this is competing with Baldur's Gate 3, I don't know, but like, what can we? I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate lately. I'm back on my bullshit, but I think, because I don't know, you talked a little bit about what Lauren and Joe had said about a movie getting chopped up in an edit. This movie doesn't feel chopped up to death to me. It really doesn't. It doesn't feel like this, like there's big chunks of it missing. Maybe they just edited well.
Not story-wise, but like for pacing, like I could see just like how do we make this beat, how do we make the pacing of this section go a little bit faster? Not in terms of like cutting out the story, but
yeah. Okay, fair. I mean, I guess I feel like everything here, I feel like this script was fairly intensely workshopped over a fairly short period because they wanted to move and they had to accommodate Millie Bobby Brown's schedule. And so I think it was just, they had a list of things that needed to be in here. It's got to have the gamified elements. It's got to have the action scene at the beginning. I think that they got the script locked
Save
in.
the cat.
Yeah, boom, 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 shot it.
Not save the cat, save the bird.
Yes. Well, did she save the bird, or did she mainly express dismay that this bird was on fire? Folks, we're referring to a really good bit, one of the movie's patented good bits, capital G, capital B, where she's in one chamber, and before she sees the dragon, she first finds one sparrow on the floor that's on fire, burning to death, and then, like, an entire flock of burning sparrows flies in and starts crashing off of stalactites and falling to the ground, and it looks dope as hell. It's a neat concept.
And I don't say this to be glib, but years ago, I know we've had many California fires since then, but years ago there was a massive one that had a lot of smoke residue traveling across the state, and it was in Northern California. And I was driving from LA to Portland, and this moment in the movie, just I had forgotten about this, but it's just like an indelible, almost dreamlike image in my head where I was driving down a stretch near Sacramento, and it was kind of a desert stretch, and I look out the window, and across this, like dusty, sandy stretch of ground, there were all these black lumps, and I'm just like, what the fuck are those?
Uh-oh.
And as I was driving, a little breeze went by, and I just saw like these black feathers floating in the wind, and I'm like, it was an entire. There had to have been like 50 crows that had just fallen from the sky, dead in this area from the smoke inhalation, and it was one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, and hard to take. But
that is haunting and grim imagery. Do you know for sure there wasn't a dragon in the area at the time? Did the dragon cause that fire?
I don't know.
So here's the other thing about Elodie is I think her defining character trait is that she says everything she sees and thinks about out loud. So, like there's this scene in the movie where she like gets to kind of this safe area in the caves where like some of the other princesses who've been thrown down there, all of them have made it to this spot. And not only have they chalked the word safe onto the wall, but also all of the other princesses have written their names on the wall, like at a regional theater backstage where all the different traveling casts of like The Lion King have come through. And
Yep.
So she sees all their names, and she reads out loud all of their names. So you got that. Now you heard them. There's some of these girls have chalked a map up onto the wall, which is reminiscent of the mazes that she draws. And she looks at the map, and she says, "A map? Now, where am I? How do I escape?" And then she finds the end point of the maze and says, "Is this it? Did a princess make it out?" So, so it's good to know that's what she's thinking when she's looking at the map. Thank you. And scene.
Well, okay, I have to. You being the screenwriting guru here,
do not.
Is there a save the cat?
No, I am not. You take that fucking back. I am not a screenwriting guru. Do not. I am not going up to people at Borders handing out business cards saying, "Hey, take my class."
You should. Is there a save the cat axiom for reading the writing on a cave wall? Because this is not the first time we've seen that this season.
Well, now, are you talking about Sahara when they look at pictures on the cave wall?
I certainly am.
Landen, I'm going to say that Sahara is much more thoughtful and restrained in its filmmaking because Steve Zahn sees the cave painting of the CSS Texas on the wall of the Bedouin cave, and then he just gasps or whatever, and then we, the audience, immediately, like, the movie trusts us, the audience, to understand the significance of what he's seen. He doesn't say, "The boat that we're looking for."
Well, we do get that scene, though, when he takes Penelope Cruz and Matthew McConaughey down there, and they all look at it and start speculating about what the cave wall paintings mean.
Okay. You know what? I guess I forgot that scene, because, believe it or not, the movie Sahara, somewhat forgettable, even though we thought about it quite a lot. I don't know what these save the cat term for that trope in movies is, unless it's the piss off the Truman move is what it's called. But because there's also, like, when she first falls down the pit and is looking around, she's been down there for a minute or two, and she sees a bunch of other shoes that are not hers, and she looks at them and says, "Those aren't mine. I'm the sacrifice." It's like, well, yeah, that was kind of obvious to everybody the second he threw you off the thing. You're in the situation, and you're like 4 beats behind the people sitting on their couch scrolling Instagram, half watching the movie. Just a lot of her dialogue is her just saying out loud the things that she's seeing, and it feels like this is just a note, you know?
Well, is that part of the kind of the algorithm? Well, I guess it's not algorithmic because the algorithm gets you to the movie, but it's the lack of trust. It's the second viewing experience screenwriting where you have to tell them what's going on because they're not looking at the screen. Yeah. No, I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, like all the other movies we've seen that are theatrical releases, like there's been bad dialogue aplenty, and there's been moments that seem to treat the audience like they're stupid aplenty. What do you think people who have a second screen experience think the movie Reminiscence is about? Oh, God. A movie that does not explain anything that's happening on the TV. In fact, goes out of its way to obscure anything that means anything in that film.
I think that the drop-off numbers for Reminiscence are higher. Like they had to get NASA computers to compute the level of drop-off for Reminiscence. People start that thing going, they're half paying attention, they're like, what the fuck is this? Is this the same analogy he was making 5 minutes ago when I opened Instagram?
The rest of my notes here are they surround the dragon and some of the scenario with the dragon and Elodie. So can we pivot to that and kind of take it to its conclusion?
Yes, let's get out of the caves.
Okay, so I have another series of questions for you.
Okay, great.
And I'm going to phrase it, even though I've come to question your question, but that's for another episode.
Wait.
Your question usually is, what does a character want?
Mm-hmm, sure.
I do think that some characters don't necessarily need a want, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm getting subtweeted right now.
The dragon.
Yeah.
She wants to eat her?
I think she just wants to kill her. I don't think it's a food thing.
She just wants her to die. She just is it about blood? I mean, like, does she want to kill her, or does she just need to be killed?
I think it's like the dragon is mad.
As far as what the dragon and these princesses' deal is, like, are they tasty meat? Like, I get that she wants revenge, but to what degree? She's like, I need to taste the meat from your bones revenge, or like, I just need you to prove that you're sacrificing your children like you sacrifice mine.
I think that's basically it. I think it's mainly spite and vengeance, because she finds some bodies of the other princesses down there, and the bodies are like decomposing skeletons, but intact. These are not bodies that have been eaten. They haven't been digested.
They're mummified. They're not picked clean.
Yeah, it's like the dragon seems mostly content to just kill these people, either by tearing with claws or roasting them alive with its goopy fire. So
goopy fire.
The fire is very goopy in this movie, and that's another thing I like.
Some of the dragon stuff I think is pretty cool. Okay, this is another part where the characters know more about what's going on because the audience knows than actually learning anything. So Elodie at one point comes across the nest of broken eggs. And this nest of broken eggs is, the knights that we saw in the cold open that killed the children of the main dragon that set off this whole, sacrifice thing in the first place.
The dragon is the last of her kind, and those 3 eggs were the whole future of the species. And then, yes, we see in a subsequent flashback to the cold open that the knights saw the eggs and destroyed them.
We do. We, the audience of this movie, do.
Yep.
Elodie just comes across the eggs, sees them. The movie goes into the flashback. We get the additional context. We come out of the flashback, and Elodie somehow knows all of this now.
Yeah, Elodie's watched the movie Damsel on Netflix. She's a huge fan. The movie's about her. I mean, she probably remembers the movie better than anybody. Yeah, no, it is very much, she, again, much like Matthew McConaughey looking at some barrels in Sahara and immediately discerning the entire purpose of the toxic waste solar plant, she looks at some shattered eggs and I guess just figures out that that's what happened, that the king's men killed the dragon babies.
So she uses this eventually, like, she's able to tell the dragon at one point, don't kill me, I know what happened to you, they've been lying to you, I've been lied to. She holds up her hand and shows the gash in her hand. She's like, all the princesses had this, didn't they? And she's able to convince the dragon that the royal family hasn't actually been sending down their bloodline, they've been doing this loophole, and don't take it out on me, take it out on them.
Yeah, solidarity.
But in the process of that, her father, Ray Winstone, a man who I don't think I'd want to meet in a dark alleyway, but he could also be a sweetheart. I'm not 100% sure. He's a fine actor, but he makes me a little nervous. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to meet anybody in a dark alley, frankly. Not even because like I'm afraid I'd get beat up. It's just like, oh wow, Ben Kingsley. Well, I don't know. This isn't a great place to hang out. Do you want to like go to a bar or something?
What if Ray Winstone was in a dark alley selling you flashlights?
Okay, well, even then, I mean, it's like, are we going to tell ghost stories to each other? Because he's such a good actor. I'm going to get creeped the hell out in this dark alley.
God. You suddenly changed my mind. I want to meet Ray Winstone in a dark alley with a flashlight and have him tell me a ghost story.
Look, this kind of gradual change in character over the course of an experience is exactly what Damsel lacked.
Anyway, regretting his decision to send Elodie down here to be sacrificed, he goes to try to save her. And there's this like extended sequence where Elodie has to watch her father battle the dragon, not knowing that she's watching him. And I'm a sucker for, any father offspring content. Mm-hmm. And this just didn't hit quite as hard as I wanted it to, but there's still some really effective pieces in it. The dragon and Ray Winstone's conversation is interesting.
Yeah.
This isn't just a beast. She is eloquent in her speech and reasoning, and she's not just like the second she sees something pounces and kills. She can have a conversation. The way she like eventually kills off all of his men and then holds him down and just puts one claw through his chest plate.
Oh yeah.
It was cool.
It's metal as fuck. This movie really ramps up in the brutality department as it goes on. Like a couple of the knights who are with Ray Winstone get their they get their shit rocked in the most edging on R way possible. Like dude's fully getting mooshed into grape jelly. But when Robin Wright gets burned, you see the crown fusing to her skull. Like there's which is a point that some reviewers made also. It's like, okay, so this movie is way too intense for kids, but it's kind of way too dumb for adults. So who's this movie for?
Right. Yeah. So, take us through to the end of the dragon stuff. Because there's a big revelation we haven't talked about yet.
I will just say that the dragon seems remarkably gullible. I'm just going to say that not only has the dragon been falling for this con for hundreds of years, never, like, questioning it or wondering about where all these girls are coming from.
This is the danger of never leaving your bubble and experiencing other perspectives in the outside world and bringing it back to, expand your horizons, your intelligence and stuff. She never leaves the cave. Therefore, how would she ever? It's Pluto's shadows on the wall.
Mm-hmm. It's Pluto's.
Pluto? Did I say Pluto?
You did say Pluto, but that's cool. I went with it because it was like, are you talking about something on Pluto TV? No, you're not. But look, Mickey Mouse's dog was quite the philosopher. He looked at a lot of shadows. It's just they were shadow puppets that Mickey and Goofy were doing on the wall.
Oh my god. This is what happens when you talk for 2 hours about Damsel.
Yeah, I know. After watching Damsel, which has already dropped your IQ to a certain level. The dragon is gullible. The dragon has never asked any questions about all these people. Also, when Elodie is escaping from the dragon, in a lot of cases, Elodie just kind of like hides behind a rock and the dragon doesn't look behind that rock. Even though
Do we know what the what are the keen senses of a dragon? Is it sight? Is it smell? I can't imagine it's smell. You got fire coming out of your orifices at every given second. You got to be burning off all the sensory details that come in that.
Look, I mean, I feel like I've been talking about Dungeons and Dragons perhaps too much, but also it's a dragon-oriented episode, so fuck it. Their stat blocks are pretty good. The dragons are good at a lot of things. They are very smart.
Yes.
They are very except for this one. This dragon is like Mr. Magoo. It is not able to find her, even though she is in the dragon's lair that it seemingly has never left in hundreds of years. And then, after the dragon kills Elodie's dad, she tries to escape, but then, oh shit, it turns out Queen Robin Wright has now grabbed Elodie's sister and is gonna marry Elodie's sister into the family and chuck her down the pit because... I don't really remember why, actually. Why? Yeah.
Yeah, because there's the bride before her, then Elodie, and then Elodie escapes the pit, and there's the third wedding.
But is it that...
Is it because she interrupts that? Does she save that? Yeah, she does. She saves that bride.
No, she doesn't. She saves the bride at the end. Folks, we watched this movie very recently. We've both lost it.
Oh, my God.
Is it that... I think it's that the dragon comes out because Elodie gets away from the dragon, and the dragon is flying around and burning up the skies and stuff, and that leads Robin Wright to be like, oh, I guess Elodie didn't work, so let's take her sister and throw her down there to try and shut the dragon up.
Oh, got it. Oh, well, the dragon escapes because they make the bond of I'm not the villain, let's go take down fucking Robin Wright.
They get to that point because, oh god, they've thrown her sister in the pit, and her stepmom gets stabbed in the process of trying to protect her sister, but then rides up to the cave anyway to let Elodie know right as she's leaving the cave. Yo, go back in the cave. Save your sister. It's also awesome. They always refer to their stepmom as stepmother. They never call her by her name. They always just call her stepmother.
I know.
And her stepmom has gotten knifed in the gut, and has barely escaped. She's bleeding out. She rides on a horse all the way up the hill to find Elodie, and so she staggers up to Elodie bleeding, and Elodie sees her and goes, "Stepmother!" And it's like, Elodie, you are such an ice queen right now. Call her name. She's dying and trying to help you, and you're just you're not my real mom. Elodie goes back into the cave now with the knowledge she's learned, runs the maze a second time, saves her sister, fights...
Stabs the rock a second time.
Yes, but she gets it on the first try. And she fights the dragon, and again, this princess with no combat training, really top-notch dragon fighter. Absolutely insane. She knows how to use a great sword. She's doing all kinds of cool moves. Does a neat thing where...
Hold on, I want to... Yeah. There's a quick pause on that. I want a Mythbusters episode on this move that I've seen 100,000 times. It makes sense in video games. It does not make sense in movies, where you got someone with a sword doing a thing, or they pick up the sword for the first time, and they're like, "This is my fucking weapon now," and they swing it around to show that they're gonna be good with it, and then shink,
oh my god,
sheath it onto the sheath that's strapped to their back.
Yes.
I don't think it's even possible to do that. But the danger of even attempting it scares me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's possible or not. No sane person is going to be like, I'm going to take this immensely sharp sword, stick it behind my head towards my back, and just trust that I'm going to blindly fit it into the very narrow slot that's back there. I would spend, if I was wealthy, obscenely the people on Succession level rich, I would make a movie like this, and we get to that scene and she goes to sheath the sword and instead just stabs herself in the back and then just falls over and dies. Smash cut to credits and Evil Dead music at the end. Just it's
People do those edits and they troll downloaders. I know. Well, I don't know. Actually, I haven't seen it, but I heard rumor of one of Home Alone where you watch the whole movie as is, but the second that Marv puts his head through the doggy door with the BB gun, someone had VFX'd it being a real shotgun and blowing Marv's head off, and then it ending.
The one that I saw, somebody went so far as to make a fake DVD of Toy Story 3, but that scene where they're all on the way to the incinerator in the junkyard, and they all just kind of like accept their death and they hold hands, that's happening, and then they just have it so it just fades to black and credits come up. But so they then like were like, hey mom, want to watch a movie, Toy Story 3? And they put it on, they filmed their mom's reaction just being like, oh my god, what, they all just died? That's it? Oh, it's better movie than this one. Fights the dragon, does a really good job, basically slays the dragon, like stabs it in the eye, tricks the dragon into shooting its goopy fire at a curvy rock, so the fire flips back around and burns the dragon. There's a commentary to be made there about how your prejudice and hatred, if you don't let it go, it'll come back to burn you.
Oh, wow.
Good bit. Landen is falling asleep on the mic right now.
No, I'm not.
But anyway, she then explains to the dragon what's going on, how to splain your dragon, so to speak, and they and they decide to join forces and take the fight to the evil queen. A thing that I was expecting to happen for about 40 minutes, and I was kind of upset that the movie really made me wait for the Dragon Millie Bobby Brown alliance until the very end of the movie.
Oh, man. Though, I will say, okay, just to backtrack a little bit. Well, not backtrack. I'm going to backtrack and forward track simultaneously. Watch how I do this.
Yeah, keep explaining it. People love that.
Robin Wright discovers that Millie Bobby Brown wasn't sacrificed, and therefore, oh shit, we need another sacrifice right away. And she goes for the sister.
Yeah.
We get one of the all-time Queen moments, and Robin Wright is one of the few people I think that can pull this off. She gets a sees her entrance. A door bursts open. She comes charging in right up into a close-up and just points her finger and says, "Seize her!"
That makes an entire career worthwhile. You know, like just to be able to bellow seize her at somebody.
But you can't just be anybody and do that, as obvious by me just doing it right now.
You sold it.
It's like, what was that? There's a story, an anecdote about Picasso that would like doodle something on a napkin and then throw it away. How does that exactly go? Like, it takes a lifetime to be able to throw something away or something like that?
Yeah. I don't know.
That.
Yeah. Picasso's not my realm of art history, but yeah, I'm sure he did some shit like that. I take your point.
Robin Wright has, it's a testament to her career that she can pull off a 2-second, big blockbuster scene like that and not have it be completely dead on arrival.
Are you ready to talk about the thrilling conclusion?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's just wrap this up. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so we're back at the castle, and there's yet another wedding happening between some new lady and Prince Henry, who is... Admittedly, in this scene, he has kind of a haunted look in his eyes of like, oh man, I am sick of all these weddings, which was how I felt when I was in my mid-20s for different reasons. But so they're doing this wedding, and Millie Bobby Brown just walks in, all tattered and covered in soot and wounds and everything, and just gets up on stage and says like that, tells the bride to get the hell out of there, and like tells the queen and everybody about what's going on and this awful stuff is happening, and condemns her to her face. And then the dragon flies up overhead, and Millie Bobby Brown basically tells everybody like, now's your chance to run if you're going to run. So they leave, she leaves, the dragon comes up, and it scorches Robin Wright and everybody and burns the whole castle to the ground.
Yeah.
I have some questions about this.
Okay, hit me with them.
So the dragon leaves the cave, flies to the castle, burns everybody alive.
Yes.
The humans had no defenses, nothing that can stop the dragon from doing this.
Seems like it. Yes.
Why didn't the dragon do this 300 years ago? Like, you've spent centuries living next door to people you hate, who murdered your babies and made you the last of your kind, and you're never just like, what if I killed them? I dream of vengeance all the time. Why am I only doing 3 at a time? Why am I not just killing all of them?
Yeah, right. Well, okay. I'm going to speculate here.
Yeah.
I need onions.
Me too.
And I live within walking distance of a grocery store.
You are very close to a grocery store.
I can walk there in 10 minutes.
Mm.
Less than that, even 7, I would say.
If you run, it could be 5.
It's very true, and I've run with onions before.
Runyons. That's the name of a canyon in LA, in fact.
However, I've opted to go onionless for many meals now because I didn't want to go out.
Okay.
I thought I could go to the grocery store, come back, and proceed cooking. Or I can cut that part out and just finish cooking faster, eat my meal on the couch while watching Damsel without the onion. It might not be as good, but I won't have to leave.
This seems to be less you trying to explain the dragon's choices and more you trying to justify your own shitty dinners that have had no onions in them.
Okay, all right, okay. Let me. Okay, I'll try a different tack. I had to bring some food to a gathering recently.
These are great stories.
I live real close to a grocery store.
Oh boy, and the stories repeat themselves too. Legends passed down through the ages.
This is myth building. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer to your question. It is part of the lack of logic of the dragon story in total.
Yeah.
What I mean, the flip side is that you're a kingdom under the threat of a dragon for 300 years. Like, dragonfly your kingdom.
Yeah, get RuPaul
like,
in there.
At least put a giant harpoon on the turrets of your castle.
Yeah, like get some kind of DARPA projects going. Like, experiment with what can kill dragons. Like, build build mechs out of wood. I don't know. Try something. You know it's going to try to kill you eventually.
Yeah.
What kind of society would be aware of an existential threat and do nothing to try and combat it over many, many years? That sort of thing would never happen in real life.
Interesting. I disagree with you. I think people would take action.
Another thing that could have been taken action on,
yeah.
If I'm Queen Robin Wright,
yes.
and I'm living in
both in real life and in the movie.
She's a double queen, 2 queens.
Yeah.
It's like a
two
good
queens.
Good
the
good
2
poker
queens
hand.
is Angela Bassett and Robin Wright, and they're both in this movie, and they're both queens.
Yeah, it's too bad that they're not.
Is that quadruple? It's queen cubed.
Oh, if I was
Queen squared. Queen squared. I'm sorry.
Queen squared. Queen cubed is the sequel to Queen squared, or it's the sequel to Cube 2 Hypercube. Excuse me while I just peel back all the layers of dumb bits that we were doing there. If I'm Queen Robin Wright and I'm having a wedding in my castle, I would take advantage of the fact that it is a walled enclosure with controlled entry points, and I would put guards at the entry so that on the off chance that Elodie escapes and tries to come fuck up my wedding, she's going to have to talk to, like, a knight and explain to him what he's doing, and the knight can be like, no, I'm going to kill you now. Like, it's just like, she just walks into the castle, and castles are explicitly designed to be hard places to just walk into.
Isn't there a moat, at the very least?
One would hope. If I had a dragon in the neighborhood.
On a dragon. Yeah,
Did
she's
she
flying
fly
in on a dragon, I can get that. So.
They didn't show that happening. No room in the CGI budget.
Well, they didn't show her entering the castle either. She just shows up on the doorstep of the wedding.
Yeah, the focus groups were confused by the shot of her walking into the castle, and so they cut that out.
Yeah.
And then like Elodie and her, so the entire castle burns down, and Elodie escapes, walks out.
Yeah.
Elodie is above ground swimming pool Daenerys Targaryen. She's got the dragon flying over her in an exact mirror of a shot in Game of Thrones. Elodie and her sister and her stepmom, who did not die, all get on a boat, and I guess they've taken a bunch of supplies or money or something. I think they're going to start doing trade with foreign countries or something. I don't know. They're going to go home. I don't know. They're on the boat.
I mean, you got a whole kingdom. You can just kind of like scrub off the char and throw the dead body. You got a pit. You got a body pit already. You
got a pit. That's all you need. I that's what I'm thinking is like, well, wait. So there's a whole village. Like we see very briefly. There's like in wide shot. We do not see the villagers. We do not see the serfs. But there's like an entire village outside the castle, and it's like, you've just created a massive power vacuum in this wealthy kingdom. There is no more ruling class.
Yeah.
Elodie, this is your chance to invent communism. Do you wanna try that, or do you want to rule them? Like, it just seems like this is not when you go home. This is when you stay, and like kind of cool Dragon Kingdom starts now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you find a way to help bring future generations of dragons forth.
Yeah,
and you start a dragon human, society.
Yeah,
trade and culture sharing.
Yeah, and eventually interbreeding, and then you get Dragonborn, a playable race in Dungeons and Dragons. So I mean, I don't know. A lot of Elodie's decision making is questionable in this movie, but this decision by far the most questionable.
The most questionable thing I have for the end of this movie, and this plays into a lot of modern marketing for films.
Yeah.
It's the once the credits start to roll.
Oh boy.
And you've seen this in movie trailers.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the really serious, slow remake of a pop song playing. It really struck me with this twee ass version of Ring of Fire
by Johnny Cash.
That I'm like, did you think this through beyond just the 3 words Ring of Fire, or to the deeper meaning or even superficial meaning of the song? Or did you just think Ring of Fire is a pop song about fire and dragons breathe fire? Wouldn't it be cool if we put that at the end?
And when you marry a lady, you give her a what?
Cash.
Exactly. Because the whole thing is about the dowry that they're going to use to fix their province back home. I'm fully sure that it was just like someone just Googled like songs about fire, and this was the first one that came up. I'm sitting there listening to this very breathy, slow, like, love is a burning thing, and I'm listening to it. I'm like, yeah, okay, original song for the movie. And then like when they get to, and it makes a fiery, and I'm like, wait, what is this? Ring. God damn it! I got so mad. You could see it in my notes. I just start typing gibberish. That made me so furious. It's like, do we need a breathy cover of Ring of Fire to really put a button on the movie? Ugh.
Well, let's put a button on this episode by bringing it into the questions we usually ask. Truman, I'm going to give you first salvo. Why was this movie forgotten?
Because it wasn't designed to be remembered. I mean, like, we've talked about this at length already, but this is second screen content, and it's produced for people to follow while they're on their phone. And the creative decisions that you have to make in order to optimize a movie for that kind of audience are naturally just going to chip away and sand off all of the inventive flourishes that make a movie memorable. And so all you've got left is a screenplay with good structural bones to it, but nothing on them bones.
Nothing on them bones.
Sounds like a Johnny Cash song. I gotta admit.
Okay. I'm gonna say the exact same thing you did, but I want to say it from the inverse.
Ooh.
Which is a chicken and an egg scenario.
Okay.
Is Netflix creating this content because people are on their phones, and they that's the approach they take, is like, we have to cater to their attention span, their we have to create anti-distraction content. Or are they creating a culture that reinforces those behaviors, and by making this content, instead of doing something that challenges them to pay attention, like you have to look at the screen in order to know what's going on. Our characters aren't just going to read a cave wall every 5 seconds to you. Are they creating content that is kind of like a perpetual amplification of this problem? they're not creating. The reason this is forgotten is because it's designed to be, in a way.
Yeah.
They don't care if it's remembered. They just care that you don't turn it off. And so they're creating content that meshes with your existing behavior rather than creating something that is going to challenge you.
Yeah.
And that makes for the most like forgettable content in the world. It's like, how do I fill this room with air?
What is the closest to room temperature I can get this water so it does not upset anybody? It doesn't even feel like water.
But if I enter that room filled with air and it's not air, it's hydrogen or it's, helium, like suddenly I have to pay attention and I have to figure out what the fuck I'm going to do. I'm going to remember that scenario.
Yeah, I'm going to remember listening to Landen with a high squeaky voice because he's in a room full of helium. We should do that sometime. We should go in a room full of helium.
For our listeners' sake, I'm not going to.
Yeah, no, we won't record it. We'll just talk about it later.
That's just, to touch on this only briefly, because I realize I can diatribe. This goes back to that Paramount decree, where I think there's a danger here in that we aren't making, I don't know how to do this without sounding old manny. Younger generations can experience things in their own way.
Yeah,
and I have my movie going thing. That's my preference, right?
Yeah.
If that goes away, that's fine. I'm an old man. As long as my thing doesn't go away when I'm alive, whatever. Like, I'm not saying my thing needs to replace your thing.
Yeah.
But this content is kind of replacing what we're creating is superficial to a degree.
Yeah.
Not all of it, a lot of it, most of it. And it's replacing the more meaningful things. I don't know. It just, I fear that without some sort of intervention, there is a danger of losing shared ideas, I guess. Like, there's no discourse around any of this. We remember it for the week that it's out when it's popular. It goes away. And all we're doing is just, we're in a cycle of not sharing ideas, not sharing experiences, and it's all just to maintain subscriber numbers.
Yeah.
I know. It feels like kind of a pod person takeover in a weird way.
No, everything is just sort of a weak facsimile of a better, more vibrant thing that you remember from before.
Because this looks like a movie. It kind of acts like a movie, but it kind of lacks that soul or the, risk-taking, the adventure, the ambition that movies are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
its own thing. It is its own thing. And I'm not saying it shouldn't exist. I'm just like, the what it's taken over scares me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the solution to the problem is other than my kind of go-to solution, which is destroy capitalism. So maybe we try that and maybe we'll fix the movies.
Burn it all down. That's where we end up at least half the time on this show.
And I can think of a dragon who that worked pretty well for. No more entrenched regency. The dragon burned it all down.
That's where we just have to find a dragon now.
Okay, well, let's get to work. Let's leave the streaming dimension and enter the dragon dimension. Nothing bad could happen to us there.
Should we remember this movie or send it back to modern memory or leave it forgotten?
No. Let's leave it forgotten. Forget this. Forgotten.
I will say, I don't think I was very forthcoming with this. I didn't hate my experience with this. Like, it's not a dislikable movie.
No, it's not offensive. It doesn't prompt any emotional response.
Exactly. And for that reason, like, I don't. The question's irrelevant because I don't even think it's an option to be remembered. Even if we chose to remember this, we would forget that we remembered it.
Yeah.
Like, there's just nothing here.
Yeah.
So, like, we have to forget this because that's ultimately what it was designed to do.
Exactly. Well, we will not cover this movie in glowworms to restore it to modern memory. We will throw it down an even deeper pit and see where it winds up.
Well, before we end this episode, I just want to remind everyone the 5 ways that you can support us because it is support month here on the Gruntwork Podcast Network. You can do that by, number 1, joining our Patreon at patreon.com/gruntworkpod, where for as little as $1, you can keep the show ad-free and artist-owned. The second way that you can help us is by Rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts goes a long way to get us in front of other people. The third way to support us is to like, follow, and subscribe on social media at Movie Memory Pod or Movie Memory Machine, specifically on YouTube and Letterboxd. The fourth way, the most important way, tell a friend. Word of mouth recommendations go a long way to get people to actually listen to the show, so tell someone one-to-one about Movie Memory Machine. The fifth and final way, we really would love to see you and have a conversation with you on our Discord. So you can find access to that at moviememorymachine.com. Join a positive community of film lovers discussing each of these films, and you get to vote whether or not you want to send this back to modern memory or leave it forgotten.
We want you to make your voice heard. We want your input. We want you to join in the fun, for lack of a better word, for what this is.
Every time you join, I'm going to do that. Ah-wee!
So actually, think about how much that's going to upset me if every time you get one of your friends to join, I have to listen to Landen say that. Think about me going totally insane, and let that motivate you to get the word out about our show.
Every time someone joins, I am going to call Truman up and just go, ah-wee, and then hang up on him.
Yeah, and he's not even going to follow it up with Werewolves of London, like I'm listening to Warren Zevon or something. So I'm going to be getting Zevon blue balls, the last thing I want.
All right, should we see if the machine will accept today's episode and maybe we can get out of the streaming dimension?
I'm not sure even I accept today's episode, but all the same,
Okay.
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
All right.
Whoa.
Okay.
Holy shit.
Something's happening.
Oh my god. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff happening in space out this window, but never anything quite like this.
Oh my god. Truman, you know what that is? That's time stretching in front of our eyes.
Ah, man, I wish that I could find the words to describe to our listeners what watching time unspooling before all of us looks like. It's really majestic. You guys would love it.
Well, actually, you know what? There is a way to describe it, because you know what I'm seeing here is just, it's the entire season 1 being stretched out before us.
All those different movies, like The Stars in the Sky.
Actually, that gives me an idea for what we can feed the machine next week.
Oh, really? You know how to end this thing?
I think I do. Go with me on this one. Whoa!
Movie Memory Machine is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/gruntworkpod to keep the machine running. Theme song by Porky's Groove Machine. Rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. For more information on today's show, visit moviememorymachine.com.